Hello and welcome to a podcast about PlayStation, the official PS Premier Game of the Year deliberations for 2020. I'm joined by Dory, Mahvl and Mitch, who will now all say hello in the order I just said their names.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, me. Hello.
Yes,
There was
you
no
nailed
one
it.
left.
Nailed it, and that's the important thing.
So, just to get some housekeeping out of the way before we continue, this is going to be in two parts. The first part, for audio listeners, Mahvl is eating a cookie. The first part is going to be our individual lists, which can include non-PlayStation games from other platforms, from Xbox, from Nintendo Switch, and so on. The second part, that'll come a week after this first part, and that'll be us debating our final collective list. And that won't include games that are not on PlayStation. That'll only be PlayStation games, only games available on PlayStation. And we're going to try and do it all without mentioning the pandemic. Fuck.
Damn it.
Uh-oh.
We were so
That's
close.
not good. That's
We
not
were
good.
so close.
Anyway, without further ado, I suppose we'll just jump in. Dory, you want to take us away with your number 10 pick?
Yes, it's appropriate because I just jumped like I did the motion. Is it? Anyway, I just want to mention a few honorable mentions first.
Well, we can get to honorable mentions later on.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
we'll do it later on.
Oh,
Well, then just cut that out. James, here's my number 10. It's a little controversial because it's technically a DLC, but I spent so many hours on this freaking DLC that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind came out this year. I know no one else is going to have it on their list, so it's just going to be me blabbing about this. But I love the super bosses. I thought they were incredibly challenging. Almost tore my life apart. I mean, it was excellent in all the ways I needed it to be. They were fun, rewarding. I came back to them every now and then. I spent, I don't know, I think about a month or two beating all the super bosses, and then eventually I came back to beat the secret boss. And then not only did they have the super bosses, but there was some story content, which was all right. And then they added some new moves to Sora's like abilities and stuff like that, improved base gameplay for free, and then also added a new photo mode, some new photo modes, editing stuff. It was just really good. It took up so much of my time this year, and I had so much fulfillment from it. Even though it's a DLC, I wanted to put it somewhere on my list, and I figured it's more fair since it's not a full game to put it way at the end.
Is it like is there a lot of content in it compared to a standard DLC, or?
It depends on what you're interested in. So if you're interested in the just the story content for the DLC, which is the Remind portion, then you're probably only going to get I think about 5 hours out of it, 3 to 5 hours maybe. But if you also want to beat those super bosses, and if you're like me, absolutely bonkers, and you want to beat it on critical, then it's going to take you a long time to get those fights. There are like super bosses you can fight independently of the story content, and that'll take you a lot longer. It depends on how good you are, how often you fight them, but it usually took me a couple days just to beat one of the bosses. And there were basically 13 super bosses that they add, and then there's remixed music. All the fights are unique. It's all one-on-one fights too, so that's not even including the secret boss, which is also incredibly challenging. But yeah, so it can take you a while. It depends on what you're interested in. If you're just there for the story content, it's not going to take you a ton of time. You could easily get this done in a afternoon or something. But if you're interested in the super bosses, it's probably going to take you a lot longer, unless you play it on like, standard or beginner or something. But I was playing on critical because I'm an absolute mad person. So it took me a lot longer.
Yeah. You're definitely going to be the only one of us with that on your list.
Yes.
I guarantee it. And now Mahvl's going to tell us his number 10, and probably the same thing. Am I right?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
Whoa!
No, my number 10 is the game that everyone played for 2 weeks and then is subsequently just dropped off of, Fall Guys. For those of you that don't remember Fall Guys, because it's been like 9 years since it happened, I think, Fall Guys was that weird battle royale / mini game combination made by, I believe, Mediatonic. It was so colorful, so fun. You play as little bean dudes, and you try to be the last one remaining and grab that sweet, sweet victory by taking a crown at the top of a hill or whatever the crap you want to do. It's different every time. So the reason that I actually ended up sneaking this one on my list and booting off Doom Eternal, which sounds very stupid now that I think about it, is because this game, for a solid week there, my family and I would all gather around on the couch. I would take my PC upstairs and we would just hand the controller off to each other. It's one of those games that you can easily just give to someone even if they don't really play games all that often, and they can pick it up in a snap. It's really just so easy, so wonderful, so fun, and I have pretty much nothing else to say about it because it's my number 10. Cheers.
I will say that Fall Guys was one of my honorable mentions. And I know we said we were going to do that later, but
no, that's fine.
Kind of bring it up. Okay.
Yeah, it's also one of my honorable mentions as well. Yeah.
Yes, I played Fall Guys. I would never have played this. First off, if this didn't come out for free, I would never have played this. But it did come out for free. I played it with the min-max community for a good, like Mahvl said, good week or two. Pretty much everybody did. It was so fun. I had so many laughs, so many good times. I never won, but I did get kind of close a couple times, which was exhilarating, and probably would have made 2020. Probably would have just completely ended 2020 right there. I think 2020 would have folded onto itself, but unfortunately that didn't happen. I'm sorry. I know I could have ended the year a lot sooner if I just grabbed the goddamn crown, but it didn't happen. But it's still a cool game. I don't really care about the updates, and I kind of lost interest after a couple weeks, but I thought it was a cool game, and it was really fun to play with other people. That was the big thing for me, is getting to play with friends. And like Mahvl said, that component is really what put it even as an honorable mention on my list.
There was a moment when it came out, when I was playing it, that it was in very strong contention for being on my list, even quite high up on my list. I think just because once I was done with it, it was at a point where I just sort of soaked it for as much as I could. I'd really wrung it dry. And then I was just sort of, I feel like that aftertaste of okay, I'm done with the game now, I've gotten all I can get out of it, and just thinking about going back to play it sort of puts me off a little bit, and I think that sort of dropped it down a little bit, just because maybe I've soured a little bit on it, having played it as much as I did. But it's definitely worth noting. It's a great game, and I'm actually interested in going back to it with all the new content that they've added from the seasons 2 and 3.
I will also say their PR game, as opposed to some other companies in
absolutely
is just on point as heck. And they've got a great PR team, great social media team. I wish them, definitely wish them all the success and best in the world. They've got a great base experience here, and I think that they've got an excellent following, despite all those people saying dead game, whatever. I know lots of people still love this game, still are very interested in where it's going. Good for Mediatonic.
Yeah. Mitch, you want to take us on to your number 10?
Sure thing. Well, speaking of another game with an excellent PR on Twitter, and I'm probably committing sacrilege just for putting the game this low, but I've only played a couple hours of it. Bugsnax is my number 10.
Gotcha.
And I think, I've only played a couple hours at this point. I've only gotten about 3 or 4 villages back. But so hence why it's so low on my list. But I can definitely say that it's got some amazing characters, some amazing, wonderful writing.
You're a little frozen in time, Mitch. There you go. You're fine now.
Oh damn. Okay, do you want me to start from the start again? Or?
No. On you go.
Oh, okay.
We heard you fine.
Well. Oh, cool. Some wonderful characters, some wonderful writing. The main problem for me though is just the gameplay isn't for me. I'm not really interested in the whole, studying Bugsnaxes, whatever the plural term is, and then catching them and doing the same mechanics over and over and over again. It's not for me personally, but I knew that going into it, so it's not, a big detractor against the game for me, but I think the writing definitely shines through a lot of the time for me.
My favorite thing about Bug Snacks was the gameplay was quite basic, as you say, but
Mm.
the thing that I really liked was just the character of like all the snacks, all the bugs. You know, they were sort of.
Oh yeah.
I like how they sort of they all say their names as they're walking about, but they say it with like a really like a funny voice and everything, and it's just absolutely adorable. Does does anyone else have Bug Snacks on their list?
Uh-huh.
Oh, of
I do.
course.
Shocker.
Shocker. Let me say some kind words about it before we. I won't say where it is on my list when we get there. I'll just briefly.
Well,
mention,
why don't you, just so I can throw it down now?
Do you want me to? Okay. It's number 4 on my list. Bug Snacks.
Okay.
That's before we started. I was talking about how something looked completely off on my screen and it felt wrong. It's because I had just bumped Bug Snacks off of my top 3. Mitch, I feel like I've gone through the ringer with you, and I would like to remove you from this call, but I cannot. So much of this game for me, and the reason that I loved it so much was the lead up to it. It was taking in that weird energy that everyone had, like right before the launch of this game, from the moment it was announced, where it wasn't some big AAA title, yet it was one of the first things shown on PS5, and everyone just kind of sat there like, what is this? And for about 4 months there, we really had no clue what we were getting into. And actually, getting to play through the game, I was given a code by Pop Agenda to like play through this, and having that experience of opening this thing up after so long of waiting and just realizing it was exactly what I wanted. It's not deep gameplay wise. It can be frustrating at times, but it's so gosh dang adorable and so light until like very vague spoiler here towards the ending. The ending goes places which I will not spoil. But it completely changed my view of the game, and that's what got it almost to my my top 3. But it's such a delight, and everyone needs to go play it. And please don't judge it based on the opening 2 hours. Try to see it through to the end if you can.
And being as vague about it as possible, speaking on the ending, like there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of theories you could come up with. Like they leave it sort of ambiguous enough that you could come away with your own theories on what is going on. Like I'm pretty sure I've even got a theory about that ending that I haven't seen anyone else express. That I won't share here for spoiler reasons, but yeah, it's that ending definitely does not go where you'd expect.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so my number 10 is Rocket Arena, which is, I feel like I haven't heard enough about Rocket Arena. So it's my number 10 partly because I really enjoy it, but also partly because I feel like it deserves more attention than it's been getting. So it's this sort of 3v3 Quake type third person shooter where you're all jumping, like it's like a hero shooter. Everyone's jumping about with rockets, and it's kind of like Super Smash Bros. Where you have to build up the enemy's health bar, and then when it gets to full, you can knock them out of the arena, and you've killed them and whatever. But it's just the act of like hitting people out of the map is just so satisfying in itself, and the game feels like incredibly well balanced, considering that it's like just an indie game. And I feel like if they properly supported this game, it could have a long life and it could be a lot of fun if more people sort of got on board with it. My one sort of criticism is that the gameplay loop can be the gameplay can be a little repetitive at times. It's not like let's compare it to Overwatch. I know it's not really a fair comparison, but let's compare it to Overwatch, where a game like you're using the same heroes on the same map every time, but because of the way like teams work together and that sort of thing, no 2 matches will ever play out the same. It's always going to be new. It's always going to be different, and that's why I have like 1,000 hours on Overwatch. It's not really the same in this. It feels like there's only one way a match can go, where you either win or you lose. There's not a lot of variation within that, but it is like just on its own. There's a lot of fun to be had there, and I really think more people should check it out. I think it might be free on PlayStation Plus still this month, or was it last month? It's this month.
Oh. It's December that it's free. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
as of this recording, it's still free. So I recommend everyone check it out. Did anyone else check it out or have it on their list or anything like that?
I didn't have it on my list, but I have played it, like quite a bit of it, like a few hours. I think my own biggest criticism of it isn't really to do with the game itself. It's just the fact that EA seemingly didn't really care about marketing this at all.
Yeah.
So, even with it being free on PlayStation Plus, like even about like what, mid-December, the population is basically dead as far as I can tell on PlayStation. Like I can really only get into co-op versus AI matches. I can't get into like straight PvP matches, which sucks. But the game itself it's fun, as you said. It's got a lot of charm to it, I think, with all the characters, and it's got a surprisingly unique, well, not unique, but like layered, I guess you would call it, upgrading system with the artifacts and stuff, so you can actually build characters to be how you want them to. It's just a few, it's not much, but it's at least something that could offer up some variety depending on how many hours you put into it.
Yeah.
But
I feel like I've probably had better luck with the matchmaking than you have, but it is definitely slow at
Probably, yeah.
times. Because I'm obviously in the UK, and you're in Australia. But
that's true, yeah.
yeah, it can be very slow at times though. Like I remember when I started playing, it was taking maybe 5 minutes to find a match. That went down significantly later on, I think, when more people were checking it out on PlayStation Plus. But yeah, that is an issue, and I am really worried that it's going to die out at some point.
Yeah.
Which would be a shame because it's really a fun game.
I was going to say, just like in Australia, you can find like the retail Mythical Edition for like $5 off, down from 30, and that was in August. So
yeah, you can upgrade.
Yeah.
You can upgrade to the Mythical Edition as well for like a $5 if you
yeah.
get the PlayStation Plus one. But yeah, it does feel like there's a lot of like monetization in there overlapping. Like it feels like none of it feels predatory, but it does feel like an EA thing.
Desperate. It feels more desperate than anything. It feels like the developers are kind of like, they see the writing on the wall, so they're just trying to like pump out or get as much money in as they can.
Sure. That feels accurate. Yeah.
For the game. Yeah.
So I guess now we'll move on to our number 9s. Dory, what is your number 9? Do you want to take us away with that?
My number 9 will doom us all eternally. Thank you. That was the best Doom Eternal joke I could think of. It is Doom Eternal. Fun fact, this was the first Doom game I ever played. I had played Quake when I was younger, and I don't think I ever played Doom. This is the first Doom game I ever played. I was overall really impressed with it. I did struggle with some of the final bosses, and I found them slightly unfair in their design, but generally, besides some kind of lackluster platforming sections, I thought this game was generally really well done, really well paced. There is some plotting that I didn't really care for as well. So that's why, again, all these reasons are kind of why it's higher up on this list. But generally, I enjoyed my time. Maybe I would enjoy it more if I played Doom 2016. But yeah, it's a great game. It's a very gory game, but it's fun. It's action packed, fast paced. It's exactly what you would want in a good Doom game by all accounts. So I'm definitely glad I played it. Just hate those last 2 bosses, mostly the penultimate boss.
Yeah, it's number 6 on my list. I agree that last boss is a little weak, and it is more difficult than the first game by a landslide. But I feel like it's an improvement on the first game in almost every aspect. Like, you get a lot of sequels these days that, well, not these days, but in general, you get a lot of sequels that sort of iterate on the previous game, but don't make big leaps. And this one made a lot of big leaps. Took a lot of risks changing up the formula over the first game, and I think all of those decisions really paid off. It has a lot more depth in a lot of ways. It's a lot more complicated and more difficult to get your head around in a lot of places, but I think in the long run, it really sort of pays off. And I like how they sort of dive deeper into the lore in this one. Because that lore is really interesting, even if it is just through text documents. I think it's smart of them to separate the lore from the gameplay so that people can choose what experience they want. And
Yeah.
they do dive into it more in the story, but I like the fact, like, if you read some of those lore documents, like, they're really well written and really interesting.
I
Very
definitely appreciated
eye-opening.
that it was a lot more optional in terms of the story, because I think I started early on. I started trying to read some text documents, and I was like, this is not what I'm interested in a Doom game. I'm immediately skipping all of these. I did listen to voice recordings. I paid attention to all the cutscenes. I got the basic idea of what was going on. It's not like I as we all know, I love story, narrative driven games. So it's not like I have something against story. Generally, it's more like story and Doom is not something I really wanted or needed. So it's not something I was looking for. So I'm glad. Yeah, I think that's a great design choice, because I never felt. There's a couple cutscenes where I was a little like unsure of like why I should feel invested, and I probably would have felt more invested if I had read more. But I mean, I played a game like Disco Elysium last year, which has famously like over 1 million words, right? But I didn't feel inclined to read all the text logs here. But that said, I still enjoyed whatever silliness they're having Doom guy get up to.
Did anyone else have this on their lists?
I did.
Whereabouts?
Do it. Right up at number 2.
Wow.
Surprisingly enough.
Whoa.
We're
I
there
know.
That's
already.
revenge for bug snacks.
Yeah. I mean, originally I had it at my number 3 spot, but then literally just then, as soon as Dory started talking about it, I'm like, yeah, Doom Eternal did rock. I'm just gonna put it up to number 2 because.
Oh yeah, can we talk about that soundtrack? Because the soundtrack was
Oh
amazing.
yeah,
The
Yeah,
soundtrack
that
was so
was-
good.
yeah.
It always got my gamer adrenaline things going. I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
I got
You'll-
my gamer juice is flowing.
That's right.
You'll
It
get-
really got my Mountain Dew going. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Your
anyway,
gamer glands were
my
pumping.
gamer glands. Thank you, Mitch. Exactly the phrasing I was looking for. No, but seriously, the soundtrack is amazing, and we really need to give a shout out to it. It was always good at wanting you to get back into the fight. If not to rip and tear, then to hear that awesome soundtrack.
And I mentioned it in my review as well. It feels like a more confident version of the first game's soundtrack. Like
Absolutely, yeah.
it feels like in the first game they were still sort of figuring out what they wanted to do with it, and this one it feels like, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's just focus on making it as good as possible.
I'd say that pretty much just sums up the game as a whole. It's a much more confident version of the first game.
Yeah.
In story and design and gameplay, it's a lot more bombastic and loud, but at the same time, it's a small thing, but I think the addition of like the hub basey thing, they give it this really dumb name, the Fortress of Doom or something.
Yeah.
Something as small as just being able to walk around and see the Doomslayer's room with all his like guitar collection and everything. Like small things like that are just like, yeah, it's dumb, but it's also cool as fuck, you know?
And
I mean,
I want to touch on as well, like you Mitch, about you like moving it just now to your number 2 spot because of what Dory was saying. I feel like it suffers from recency, the opposite of recency bias, more than other games, because whenever I go back to play it, I think, wow, this is really good. Maybe I should move it up my list, because I feel like it doesn't, because it's mainly gameplay focused, it doesn't stay with you as much as some other maybe more story driven games stay with you over the course of the year.
Yeah,
I think Doom also has the unfortunate like kind of rep of like being being put in a weird time. I mean, this whole year obviously has been bizarre and bad in a lot of ways, but the time frame in which Doom came out, I mean, it was just a weird time where I think a lot of people were still adjusting to the way things were, and big games were still on the horizon. So it was just kind of in this middle spot between a rock and a hard place, where it was maybe tough to appreciate Doom as much as you might have otherwise. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, I'd say that's fair. I mean, it came out right as, the shit was starting, basically.
Yeah.
So, but I think, weirdly enough, a game all about, fighting hell and demons is probably one of the best things to come out of 2020 video game wise. So
I remember, I know, I know you said we were going to talk about this, But I remember early when I was playing when I was playing the game, one of the things I was thinking about, or I think I said this to my partner, or I just said this to myself, but I was like, I just pretend that every one of these demons is like part of the coronavirus or something. You know, I'm really doing something here in my living room, and it didn't work, obviously. But yeah, I mean, like Doom is like, you know, you're stuck in this, you know, in these hellish environments, which is a big 2020 mood, but you can actually do something about it. So it is actually kind of an empowering narrative to be in.
You feel powerful.
You know,
yeah.
Yeah, because you feel, I mean, that's what Doom's all about, right? So rip and tear.
Mahvl,
Exactly.
you want to show us your number 9? What you got?
Yes, okay. Before I start, may I just ask, does anyone here use virtual reality at all? I'm trying to
not often.
Thank the Lord, Mitch. You are saving me so much headroom here. All right,
it's
here we go. All right.
VR, yeah.
If it works, it works. All right, number 9, Star Wars Squadrons.
Not worth it. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So, have any of you played it before I go on?
I just got it. I
played the EA Access demo.
Okay. So for everyone listening, Star Wars Squadrons is a spiritual successor to the Star Wars ship games of days long past. Essentially, the whole point of the game is just to fly a freaking Star Wars ship and feel like a BA. It really doesn't serve much of a purpose other than that. There is a campaign there. I never touched it. I never felt like I needed to touch it because every time I loaded into the game, I was playing on VR. The mere spectacle of sitting inside of a TIE fighter and being able to look around, being able to like see the world around me, have ships flying across my sides, and you know, being able to really be in that moment, it fulfilled childhood dreams. I mean, this is something I have wanted since I was a little child, and having that little bit of escapism in 2020 where there's nothing more to it except you're just going to go shoot some things in a big old ship. It's just exactly what I needed. I haven't felt like I needed to go back to it, you know, since like the first month that I played it. But every time I get out my VR set, I do have that moment where I'm like, maybe I should re-download that and just give it another shot. It's a very, very special experience. And playing it with a group of people, sorry for cutting you off again, James. Playing it with a group of people, probably the best multiplayer experience you can have. It's very short rounds. You just get a group of like 6 other people together. You fly in, you fly out, and you're done. It's good.
Yeah, I haven't played it in VR. And I can imagine if you're a Star Wars fan, it's probably a lot bigger a deal than it is for me as a non-Star Wars fan. But when I played it, I enjoyed the first mission of the campaign, which is all you get access to with the demo or the trial. And I jumped into multiplayer. Like, I really enjoyed that single player mission, and I thought I could see myself playing more through that. But I jumped into multiplayer, and I think I gave up after one match because maybe it's just because I'm not good at dogfighting games, but I feel like it suffers from the same thing that every other like dogfighting game that I've played, or even dogfighting game within a game, like say one of the Battlefield games where you fly a jet, suffers from, where after a while you just end up doing that thing where you're circling over and over again, chasing some guy who's also circling behind you, and you're just doing loops constantly, and it's just not fun for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
Does anyone else have it on their lists at all? No?
Nope.
Okay. In that case, we will move right on to Mitch's number 9. What you got, Mitch?
For number 9, I have Cyberpunk 2077.
Whoa!
So I guess
the buggy game.
Yes. I guess we'll just get this one, out of the way with already. I mean, pretty much as Dory sort of clarified to me on the podcast, earlier this week, it's pretty much just a very uneven experience across the board for me. Like, I think the story has some great moments, and then it has some not so great moments. The gameplay also has some great moments, but then it also has some more not so great moments. And I mean, just the state and clusterfuck of this game's release has really just kind of killed the mood for this game for a lot of people, I presume. And not to mention, like, the open world just, I mean, at least for me, fell completely flat. I've got really no compulsion to explore it or actually engage with it at a level higher than, okay, now I'm gonna what you call it? Now I'm gonna go to this mission marker, I'm gonna go to this mission marker, or maybe I'm gonna I don't know, sell some items or something. Like, I don't feel like I'm a resident of Night City in the way that I think the developers and everything think they want me to
100%.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to mention, sorry, before you say what you want to say,
Yep.
I'm currently at a point where I can literally not progress in the main story due to so there's a mission I'm at the moment where every single time Keanu Reeves says a line complimenting my cock, the game crashes.
What?
I'm not
Nice.
joking.
That is a great thing to come back to.
It's like, it's like, he's like, it's like, you remind me of me, impressive cock, and then the game just crashes. Like, it's happened about 6 times now.
That's the most Cyberpunk 2077 thing I've ever heard in my life. James, if we're not clipping this, I'm quitting the podcast.
Please record that. Please record that and send it in so we can put it in the edit. I need that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at the game at
Great.
the moment.
That's not a bad place to stop, I suppose. It is also on my list. You might be surprised to hear that it's at number 4 on my list.
What?
Yeah, I've warmed on it a lot more than when we talked about it on the last podcast, where we sort of lambasted it for its empty feeling world and everything like that. I've gotten a little bit further, and I've unlocked some of the side mission lines with some of the characters that you meet in the campaign that I really like. And, doing those side missions, I'm feeling like really invested in those characters and in those stories. The world still feels dead, but I feel like those stories in particular, and just the main story as well, are really strong, and they sort of are keeping me pushing through the game and enjoying the game, despite all of the bugs and the crashes. I think I'm in double digits on crashes now.
Oh, wow.
But it's, all that aside, like, I feel like there's a lot of this game that's right up my alley, which is why I've got it so high on my list. But yeah, it's I like it. I think it's fun.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot of fun.
I was going to say, just speaking quickly on like Night City itself, it's a beautiful looking, design wise, it's a beautiful looking game.
Yeah,
like I think they really nailed the cyberpunk part of Cyberpunk 2077.
And Keanu Reeves complimenting your genitals notwithstanding, the writing is really good as well. Like I really see that sort of Witcher 3 DNA shine through in that particular aspect.
That's the thing. Like, it goes from such incredible heights of like emotional and sometimes comedic depth, and then like, especially mainly in the side missions, I'd say, like, it falls into like the sort of bog standard open world RPG fare where it's just like, I need you to collect such and such of my whatever or something. But I think, like, writing wise, the game definitely isn't bad. That's not this game's problem at all. It's more just so from a gameplay and polish
100%.
point of view. Yeah.
Do I need to ask if anyone else has this on their list?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
So
just start.
So my number 9 is Kentucky Route Zero. A game which you could argue was maybe not developed this year, since only the 5th and final episode came out this year, but I'm counting it because the full complete package was released this year, and everyone else is counting it, so screw you.
People are counting it.
It's I think Soriel Vasquez on the MinMax show said it best in something recent. It's very much a sort of eat your greens game, in that it's not fun to play necessarily, but there's so many like interesting plot developments and characters, and the writing is just so incredible in the way that a good book is, which I wouldn't know because I don't read many books. Um, but it's sort of, it's like a good play, and I think that's also personified in one of the interludes. So there's like 5 episodes, and there's interludes in between them all. The third one, called The Entertainment, is one of my favorite bits of the game, where, and it's the most simple thing ever. You're just sitting in a bar, right? And you're in the middle. You're like this character who's just like been sitting there the whole night, not saying anything. You're just looking around the bar, listening to all these conversations everyone's having, and it's just regular conversations. They're like, hey, how's that holiday you went on? La-di-da, right? But it slowly develops and so gradually builds into something more dramatic. So by the end of, like, it's like an hour long, this interlude, and it's just you listening to these conversations, but they're so well written that they hold my interest. And by the end of it, the drama's ramped up so much, and you want to know, like, what's this guy talking about? He's being so vague. What is this? What's going on? And by the end of it, it's like there's like I wouldn't call it a plot twist, but like this sort of surprise, and it's like it just happens so quickly, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? And
does
I
it
like
pass the does it like pass in the sense of like, oh no, anyways, like in terms of
well, kind of, because it's
twist,
like it's all this ramping up, and you don't know what it's ramping up to, and then all of a sudden you just turn around and then you see what it's ramping up to, but you still don't know what it is. You're still confused. But the genius of it is, like, all the interludes, they play into the next main chapter, but not in like a this is important to know kind of thing. It's just like little details that are interesting, and they feed in and they make sense when you play the next chapter. And it just all sort of ties in together like that. It's really sort of impressive like that. And then there's these, in the main episodes, there's these sort of musical moments where, like, there's one in the middle, I think it's in the 3rd episode, where you follow this couple, these 2 people who are performing at this venue. You follow them there, and then you listen to their show, and just like the whole scene just changes and just lights up, because the bar, just the way that it does it sort of visually, and the way it sort of uses the music to sort of tell a story almost. And besides that, like, the game has some really incredibly well written and subtle messaging about its themes and everything like that. And it's just, honestly, just genius. The only reason it's not higher on my list is because, as I say, it's not really fun to play. But it's incredibly thought-provoking and just
what
incredibly
is the
well written.
gameplay actually like?
It's kind of point and click, except there's not a lot of pointing and clicking. It's just like, it's a 2D sort of landscape, and you just walk across these different scenes. Okay. And it plays with perspective a lot as well, so it's not always just a 2D side-scrolling thing. It plays with perspective, and in different ways. It gives you different camera angles, but it always maintains the same art style. And it plays around a lot with the conventions of, like, genres and just your notions of the game itself from playing up to that point. But it's just really clever. I don't suppose anyone else played this or has this on their list.
I haven't played it, but I'm getting it for Christmas because I've been really wanting to play it. And so I will probably be playing it in 2021. And if I had played it, it probably would be in my top 10, just knowing me and what I'm into. This game really sounds like up my alley. So I've been really wanting to check it out for a while now.
Yeah, it took me a while. I played it over the course of the year. It took me a long time to play it just because, as I keep saying, it's not fun. But it's my number 9. So it's an incredibly unique experience. I'm a big fan of it. So with that, we'll move on to we've come back around again, Dory, to your number 8.
My number 8 is a game that everyone has on their list. Of course, it's Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. Obviously, everybody has this on their
Kingdom Hearts game.
I think you're the only person in existence who would put 2 Kingdom Hearts games on their top 10 for a year.
I probably am, actually.
Especially
Even Kingdom Hearts fans might not have done that this year. No, it was a really good year. If you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, it's been a really tremendous year. I mean, we've got DLC, teases from Nomura and introduced for a new game, as well as a musical theater rhythm game, which is Melody of Memory, plus some mobile games, if that's your thing. We are not starved for choice, which is a rarity among Kingdom Hearts fans for many years now. But anyway, yeah, Melody of Memory. I was not originally going to even pick this game up. It is $60. That is way too much. But it is a very good game that I think it doesn't do necessarily anything brand new with the theater rhythm genre or the sort of, Guitar Hero or Rock Band-esque genre of tapping buttons in rhythm with music. But I think what really steals it for me is that just the wide range of music from the Kingdom Hearts franchise is so uniformly good. And, at worst, some of these songs are just okay. But I mean, you've also got some classic Disney songs. You've got some interesting plot developments towards the end. And I overall, I spent over 20 hours with this game, even though I beat it in like 7. So I think it has a lot of replay value. You can make this game. Some people were really worried that it's like, oh, it's Kingdom Hearts, but it's a theater rhythm game. They're going to make it really easy for kids. It's like, yeah, like you can make it really easy for yourself. You can have a one button style approach, or you can play on beginner, and it's incredibly easy then. But you can also put it on proud mode and put on performer style, and then you're really cooking and I didn't even do that. But you are going to be pressing a ton of buttons. I don't know if it's through the fire and flames bad, a la Guitar Hero, but it gets pretty wild on some of those songs. I've A-ranked almost every single song on Proud, which is what I spent most of my time doing after I beat the game. But it's really fun. It's just not worth $60, so I really recommend folks pick it up if you enjoy Kingdom Hearts. The music, at least. I don't even think really you need to appreciate the storyline or the complicated characters or whatever to really appreciate this game. I think it's the most Kingdom Hearts has ever been divorced from its larger storyline. So it's probably one of the most accessible Kingdom Hearts games. Even if I don't know that you should be spending $60 on it.
Anyone else got that game on the list?
No.
No more Kingdom Hearts fans.
Nobody does.
Touche. No.
That brings us to Mahvl, your number 8, please.
My number 8 is the other one that everyone played for about 3 weeks and has given up on, except for a healthy few like me, and that would be Among Us.
Wait a minute, that didn't come out this year.
Hey,
Oh,
Wait a second. Mahvl is sus.
Well, James, most of Kentucky Route Zero didn't come out this year either, but we're counting that. So, suck it.
Touche.
By chance, does anyone else have Among Us on their list? I'm assuming no.
I don't have it on my list, but I played it a little bit, and I do really enjoy it.
Okay, yeah. So, everyone knows what this is. I'm not going to go into depth explaining, the gameplay. Very, very briefly, it is a social deception game where there are 10 people on a ship. 2 or 3 of them are aliens that are trying to murder the rest. And the whole point is to lie to your friends and see if you can either be the one to kill all of your friends or find the aliens who are trying to kill them. It's very, very simple concept, but so much of the joy of this game is the simplicity of it. It's getting in, having someone just like hop on their phone. It's free on phones. You can just hop on their phone. It's like 2 buttons. Anyone can figure it out. And just being able to share that with everyone. You can easily get a group of 10 people together to just mess around for a couple hours in this game. There's not much to it, but anyone who's played social deception games like Secret Hitler or Mafia or One Night Ultimate Werewolf, it's very much just that, where you're not playing because of the gameplay or the art or anything about it other than being with a group of people. And for me and many of my friends, this was the game that we all used to connect. This is what we used for weeks and weeks and weeks, just to mess around with each other for a couple hours every few days. And
look, if it's good enough for AOC, it's good enough for anybody. Okay.
Exactly.
I will say I am terrible at social deception as a general rule, and I also do not enjoy it. So unfortunately, Among Us was a hard sell for me, but I enjoyed the 1 or 2 games I played. It was kind of played with internet issues at the time, but yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, and if you're a sociopath and a murderer like me, it's perfect. You're probably going to be great at it. But yeah, pick it up if you haven't. I'm sure you have. It's free on mobile. It's like $5, I think, on Steam. Give it a shot. It's on pretty much everything you can think of. It's coming to most consoles next year.
Great. So next year it will be eligible. No, it won't be. I'm kidding. Mitch, what about your number 8? What have you got?
Yes, my number 8, which came as a shock to me, probably as much as it will to you. My number 8 is Battletoads.
What?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
What?
I kid you not.
Okay, Battletoads is the thing I didn't think I'd be typing tonight.
If you'd like, Mitch, I can give you a couple more minutes. We can edit this out, and you can just come up with a different one instead. Save yourself the embarrassment.
It's funny that you're mentioning Battletoads because I was just watching Gerard the Completionist list, and he also had Battletoads on his list. So you're in good company.
Well, okay. Well, if Gerard has it on his list, then I'm much more confident now.
People are going to be phoning us now asking if we have Battletoads. You know that.
We do have Battletoads on my list.
We do.
Amazingly.
Amazingly, yeah.
Wow. Okay,
no,
Mitch,
so
here to explain why you're so crazy.
I'm not crazy about it, but I think it's kind of weird. It's like going from games like, Cyberpunk and, I mean, of course, The Last of Us Part 2. I mean, actually, I kind of got onto this game not long after I beat The Last of Us 2 for like the second time or something.
I mean, very similar themes, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably... I think it's
there
just
was
because
a toad
it's...
in Last of Us Part 2. No spoilers.
I mean, probably that's. But no, like it's fun. It's stupid. It's dumb. I love the art style. The characters are lovable, but also like dumb in that same. Like it feels like one of those Saturday morning cartoons you just wake up to as a kid, except you can play it. The gameplay itself is fine. Like I think single player, which I played it probably gets a bit too difficult for its own good in certain stages. But I think the cutscenes and writing like they're not amazing or anything, but they're just some light dumb fun that I could play for a few hours at a time or something and enjoy. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Battletoads. There's not much to it.
I feel pretty confident in assuming no one else has Battletoads.
You're good.
Okay. In that case, I will move on swiftly to my number 8, which is Sackboy: A Big Adventure. One of the launch titles for the PlayStation 5. I would argue the most overlooked launch title for the PlayStation 5.
Absolutely.
I'm genuinely kind of sad that not more people are talking about it or have picked it up.
James.
Sorry?
James, would you say that you're a sad sack about it?
She did it.
I would not say that. I wouldn't dare. Genuinely though, it sort of carries over that. It really translates that charm of the Little Big Planet games into a 3D platformer, considering it's another new developer that's made it as well. It's not Media Molecule. It's Sumo Digital, who are also based in the UK, like Media Molecule. But they really have captured the essence of those games and translated it into a genre that I find more fun than 2D platformers like Little Big Planet was. And honestly, like, if you're looking for co-op games for your PlayStation 5 or for your PlayStation 4, look no further. It's genuinely a sheer joy to play with other people or even just play on your own, because it is a completely solid 2D platformer. It's got all these fantastically written and colorful characters, some of whom voiced by famous actors like Don French and that other guy who plays the bad guy whose name I can't remember.
Richard E. Grant.
Richard E. Grant. Thank you, Mitch. And also there's a shopkeeper. There's a French, I think he's French, shopkeeper who is very funny. Every time you go into his shop, he makes some hilarious jokes, and he's incredibly well voiced, and it's all sort of about that character, that I keep coming back to. And the gameplay is really solid, and it uses music in really interesting ways. Like there's one level where it plays Uptown Funk, and everything, all the items and the enemies in the level are dancing to it as you go through, and it's really fantastic. That's all I have really to say about it. I don't think anyone else has this on their list, right?
Nope.
That 70 quid price point is a steep ask, but I'd argue it's worth it because it's a surprisingly big game. There's like 5 different worlds you can go to, and they all take a few hours to get through. So yeah, moving on then to number 7. Dory, you are up. What is your number 7?
My number 7 comes in hot from another oppressed minority besides gamers, of course, is the skaters. And this year, finally, skaters got to rise up with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake. I promise all of my custom intros will be just as funny as that one.
Thank you.
Absolutely, that's my promise to you. But anyway, so I really love this game. I played Tony Hawk as a kid, mostly Tony Hawk Underground, but I did play some of the originals, I think, when I was younger. You can watch my review on the PS Premiere video channel, plug. And I was very positive on this game. Now, the game does have some janky mechanics at times. There are, I think, after a while, I think the soundtrack, as iconic as it gets, does get a little bit repetitive. But overall, the single player is just such a joy to play. My partner and I kind of switched controllers back and forth. That was a really fun experience. And just that learning curve and like being able to overcome and finally being able to figure out how to get scores really easily made Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 in the remake package like much easier to do than 1. I spent about 15-20 hours on it. I don't think like the multiplayer or online is unfortunately anything really to write home about, which is part of what keeps it holds it back from being higher up on my list. But it's still a really good game. It looks great. The music is Tony Hawk music. It's great.
I was just to interject here. I was actually, I think I was a bit hotter on the multiplayer than you were, because I wasn't originally planning on playing any, but I played some to capture footage for your review.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see myself playing it for a long time, but I thought it was quite fun, even as someone who's a bit of a novice to those games, to jump in and sort of compete against other players for scores and through all these fun challenges that they've got.
Yeah, there was a match or two, I think, where I started having fun for a second, and then I think I just didn't test it long enough. I might not have given it a fair enough shot because like I wasn't enjoying it at first, and at that point I had spent like 15 to 20 hours on the single player campaign, and I was kind of burnt out on the game, I think. So I think I just wanted to get in and out with the multiplayer. I had more fun playing like local co-op with Kim, with my partner than with people online, really. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on who you're playing with. I think local is probably going to be better. I didn't have a lot of fun with the Create Skate Park either, but that's also because that's just not my jam in general. I don't really enjoy those kind of modes more generally, so that's not really saying anything about the game. But overall, I thought this game was really fun. It breathed a lot of new, desperately needed life into this franchise, and shows that good Tony Hawk games can still exist. Amazing. Anybody else got this on their list? No. Okay, that's fine.
I might have had it as an
I gotta
honorable mention.
represent the skaters. It's
fine. Now, Mahvl, what is your number 7, please?
My number 7 is a remake of a very old game, and by very old, I mean a PlayStation 3 game. It's Demon's Souls. I don't know if any of you have gotten a chance to play it yet.
I have.
But, oh my gosh, there is so much I would love to say about this game, but the issue is I am not way too far into it. I think I'm about 3 or 4 bosses in at this point. That's the only reason it's not higher on my list. For those of you who don't know, because I haven't really talked about it much on these shows, I am a huge From Software fan. I have played Dark Souls 3. Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time, if not my favorite. I freaking adore this whole franchise, and this was my first time getting to play through Demon Souls, and having it be one of the PlayStation 5 launch titles, this remake that everyone has been wanting for years now, was just such a genius move. Because if you're one of the suckers like me who for some reason bought a PlayStation 5 on launch, you at least had this to go to. It's absolutely gorgeous. It makes incredible use of the DualSense controller. This is one of my favorite examples. There's a part in Demon Souls, and I think it's World 2, where there are people throwing boulders from above you to try to hit you as you're walking into a building. And the first time that I really noticed the rumble, let's just call it rumble because I don't remember what they're trying to call it here, where I noticed the rumble being so specific was, if you turn your camera around, it will actually move where the boulders are hitting on your controller, like where the buzz is happening, to where it is in relation to your camera. So like if you have your camera pointed directly away from them, it'll be perfectly in the back, and as you spin around, the rumble will slowly shift around your hands. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not as far in as you. I've also played a bit of it. I got to the Tower Knight, which is one of the first bosses, and I have not beaten him. I'm actually having a hard time getting to him to begin with, because that bridge just is so brutal towards him. But yeah, it's really for a PS3 game, it feels incredibly smooth. I mean, obviously it's a remake, but it does feel incredibly smooth considering its origin. Like they've really done a number on it. It really made it modern. But even beyond that, I think the level design is really clever, which obviously they haven't altered at all, really. I don't think, having not played the original. It does feel like a PS3 game, but I think it stands the test of time. Like the way levels flow, like in Dark Souls games at the moment, what From Software is doing is they're sort of having these sort of Metroidvania type things where you it's kind of a linear path, but you have to go double back on yourself and that sort of thing, and teleport. But at least the first level of Demon Souls, there's a big gate that is locked, and then you have to go around and make your way all the way around and come back to the same point, but there's a lever that you have to go around to gain access to that unlocks the gate. And then there's a checkpoint that's like literally a few 100 meters away from the last checkpoint. It's just you can't access it, and that's just really clever level design.
Yeah, and one of the most interesting things about this game is after you beat the first boss, which is basically just a bunch of globs with shields. I still don't know what those are. After you beat that first little chunk, you can go anywhere in the game. It does not stop you whatsoever. You go talk to someone up at the top of the tower, and from there, you can access any of the worlds that you want to. So it is not only like shown as an option. Well, shown is a strong word. They try not to tell you anything. It's recommended to like just skip around the world. So like you do world 1, level 1, and then you might do level 2, but then it'll say like you can keep going through here, or go to world 2 and try to beat boss 1 of there. It's so easy to get caught up in the way that From Software works now, where it's you progress straight through a level and you just keep going, and eventually you'll keep making it up these little checkpoints, up these lamps or bonfires, whatever it is in the game you're playing. That when I went back to this game, I almost didn't think it was an option. Like I thought I had to keep going forward because that is the standard for those games now. It just really lets you explore in a way that other From Software games don't.
Yeah. I don't know if I would want to sort of, like I said, I've only gone to the Tower Knight. I don't know if I would want to sort of double back and go to the other areas, because I feel like I'd end up just jumping around and not beating bosses, and then just keep going. Oh, maybe I'll get as far as I can in this one and then go to the next one. But yeah, I started playing it, and I was saying to myself, oh, this isn't that hard. Everyone's saying this is like brutal compared to all the other ones. I'm like, it's not that bad. I'm making through it fine. I just killed the first boss, no problem, with some fire bombs. And then I got to the Tower Knight, and he one-hit me.
Yep.
And that is just sort of like, it's just like a slap in the face. Whereas most games would sort of like they sort of attune you to the difficulty. This one sort of said like it leads you on into thinking, oh, it's not that bad, and then it just like, just slaps you in the face, and it's like this is the worst game you're ever going to play.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. So, Mitch, what's your number 7? I should say nobody else has Demon Souls on their list, right?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, it was an honorable mention for me, but yeah, Mitch, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is, actually no, screw it. I am gonna say it's a game. Astro's Playroom on the PS5.
Nice.
That is a video game.
It is a video game because it in a way it's a tech demo because basically its express purpose is to show off the the big features of the PS5 and especially the DualSense. But I think the way I forget which studio did it, but the way they turned what is essentially a tech demo into like a fun-filled nostalgia trip through PlayStation is kind of incredible to me. Like, I haven't like
I believe it was Japan Studio.
Japan Studio, yeah, that's it. I think for I probably spent about 5+ hours in it already, even though it takes about less than 2 to actually get to the end screen, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I've just had so much fun going through the levels and getting all the collectibles and just I think even like something as small as like pulling back on a rope or something and then feeling that feedback in the controller itself, it's so satisfying and so much fun. I'd say
sorry.
Yeah.
It's an honorable mention for me. I didn't even go for the platinum, but I just went through all the levels to get all the collectibles because they have this thing in the sort of hub world where it's like a jigsaw on the wall. And you have to unlock different parts of it, and I just couldn't live with myself not having it completely unlocked.
Yeah, when you get the fully completed, I think it's like the PlayStation Labo room or whatever it's
Something
called.
like that. Yeah.
When you get all the murals and all of the like collectible,
which is weird. Sorry, which is weird because Nintendo Labo is the thing. So...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Like every time I see it, like I know Nintendo did this. It's funny that you mentioned Nintendo because this is probably like equivalent to like PlayStation's version of Wii Sports. I guess in that sense where it's like it's that game that you can just hand over to somebody who's never played PlayStation or the console before. You can hand the controller over to them and they'll immediately have fun, they'll immediately get into it. And like the controller demo especially is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's probably like I've had numerous friends and family over. I'm just like, all right, try this controller demo and then you can go. And then after they played the controller demo, they've wanted to play more of Astro's Playroom.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, I keep cutting you off here because there's so many little bits that I want to talk about. Like, first off, there's like, I want to say that I hate when games use motion controls, and this is no different. I hate the motion controls in this. I despise them. But also, there's that final boss, which I won't spoil, but it's like a very cool PlayStation homage.
Yeah. I had no idea that was actually a thing until I played it. I'm like, this is awesome. Yeah.
I did not see that coming at all. Also, there's this bit where you're sort of playing as you're in like a rolling ball that you have to move around with the touchpad.
Oh, yeah.
Touchpad. And there's this bit where you go over this rocky terrain. And that was the first moment when like the haptics and the triggers and the 3D audio and everything sort of came together. And I was like, wow, that was the first like wow moment for me in that game. Was going over that, like just that little tiny moment that wasn't like meant to be a big moment or anything. It wasn't built up, just like, and it just that really showed off the controller for me and all the features of the PS5. And also when you go into the GPU jungle level, throughout the whole level, there's like a big block thing in the distance singing the GPU song.
Oh my gosh!
And it's one of the best. Like, there's some great soundtracks this year, but that was one of the best musical moments of the year, as far as I'm concerned.
For sure. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, great. So that's your number 7. That was not on my list, but an honorable mention. Does anyone else have Astro's Playroom on their lists?
Nope.
No. Okay. My number 7. I imagine a few of you'll probably have this on your list as well. My number 7 is Spider-Man Miles Morales,
Yeah.
which I will say would have been lower if it wasn't for the absolutely phenomenal photo mode that this game has. Like, using any other photo mode after playing Miles Morales is ruined for me.
Yeah.
Like, just the ability to manipulate light sources and add your own light sources to really make a character pop and stand out from the environment is a complete game changer in a way that no other photo mode has been. Not even Ghost of Tsushima. Like, I know people love that photo mode and praise that photo mode to hell, right? But this is such a bigger leap than that. Like, I don't care about being able to make GIFs or have all these particle effects.
Leaves.
This just being able to just nullify all the lights and just have a completely black background and a well-lit character just so effortlessly is just absolutely amazing. And I feel like that's the only thing I want to talk about, because I wasn't a big fan of the writing or the way the story went, and there was a lot of good stuff in the game, like the way Miles interacts with his community and sort of becomes a part of that community and how they react to him and that sort of thing that game does really well. But there's also a lot of weak spots, like the story, then there's also stuff like the gameplay, which is just a step above the first game.
Yeah.
And yeah, just there's ups and downs, which is why it's not higher or lower on this list, but that's where it is for me.
You know, that Venom shock mechanic with the combat is some of the most fun I have ever had playing a game in this style. It is still very much that Batman Arkham style combat. It's very much the same block, dodge, punch combat, but the addition of the Venom shock is so freaking delightful. You could literally just close your eyes and nail every single hit, press that little bumper, press the square, and you just feel like a freaking wonderful superhero. I'm trying to censor myself. I'm trying to be nice to you, James. But no, it makes me nervous for the next Spider-Man game with Peter Parker, because I am so used to the Miles Morales combat that I don't want to go back to the old combat. You know, it's really something that needs to be played to be believed.
They sort of painted themselves in a corner with that for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask where it is on everyone else's list?
It's my number 4, personally.
It's my number 6.
Number 2.
Does anyone else have anything else to say about it?
Yeah, I've got tons to say about it.
Yeah.
So Miles Morales is number 2 on my list. This was one of the most hotly anticipated for me games of the year. I'm a huge Spider-Man stan, whatever we're saying these days. I loved Spider-Man growing up as a kid. I fell in love with Miles Morales' character through Spider-Verse, as many folks did. I think the combat, as we've been talking about, is much improved. The way that side missions are handled is improved. I disagree with James about the story. I think the story is excellent, and largely written very, very well. There are some small missteps here and there, but I think overall it is still a very well told coming of age story.
I might have been too harsh on it, but yeah,
that's fine. Wait, we can disagree. That's fine. But that's what this whole thing is about.
No,
right?
but yeah, I still may not have reflected my thoughts entirely, because I do think it's solid. I just don't think it's as good as the first game.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think it rivals the first game. I'm not sure if it comes up on top or not, but for me anyway, that didn't really matter. I loved the story. Miles Morales was such a good experience for me that I platinumed it, and I have never platinumed the game before. I came very close with Spider-Man, the original, and a couple of years before it, but I didn't because of a certain annoying character who will not be named here, who is too good at being annoying, and I absolutely did not want to do her side missions any longer. But anyway, this did not have that character, so I had no problem going through all the side missions. The only thing I didn't like for platinuming it was that I had to do New Game Plus, but that gave me an excuse to play it on the hardest difficulty, which is still relatively accessible if you're doing New Game Plus. Contra to James, the photo mode doesn't really matter to me. I almost took no pictures at all. I know.
You monster.
I know.
I haven't taken a single one.
What a waste. What a waste.
I know. I know. But I freaking love this game. I agree with Mahvl that I'm a little nervous what they can even do with the next game to keep it fresh, and also to make sure that people are happy and get to play as Miles as well, because those Venom powers are just amazing. I also want to point out the voice acting and the graphics, even on the PS4, are stunning. Web swing, of course, is always phenomenal. You really feel like you're gonna stop saying anything right here.
Almost. Yeah. If that's that, then can I double check? Sorry. So it was Dory was your number 2.
That was my number 2.
Mahvl, it was your number 6.
Mhm.
And Mitch, it was your number 4.
Mitch, did you want to add anything?
I mean, really, you guys have pretty much covered all of it. I think I'm in a similar boat with James in the fact that I think the story is, a step down from the first game, but it still has, a lot of heart to it that I can, I love and respect. But the combat and gameplay is absolutely improved, and I have no idea how they're going to, match that or even surpass it in the sequel with Peter. But I think another thing I want to add in is just the soundtrack as well, with the little hip hop sort of tunes in the background, like it, especially like the combat sort of themes, it absolutely slaps, if that's the correct terminology in this
As
sense.
the kids say.
But yeah,
Yes.
yeah, as the kids say, yeah, the music slaps pretty much across the board, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely worth mentioning. Right, that's the end of our number 7s then. Dory, what is your number 6? Please.
My number 6 is a game that is 4 stars out of 5. That was my really weak attempt.
Oh, I know what it is. Yeah.
It is the game that is undisputably better than Resident Evil 2 remake.
It is the game that is one of the worst games of the
Oh,
year.
of course.
Wow.
It's not that
Anyway,
bad.
so James with his wrong opinions. No, so this
I think
is
I
Resident
dislike
Evil...
it more than most.
Yeah, probably. Resident Evil 3 remake, or Resident Evil 3 the remake. I played this was one of my first Resident Evil games as a kid, so obviously I have a little bit of nostalgia there. But I was so young, I barely remember playing it, so there's not a ton of nostalgia really. I have more nostalgia for RE4, honestly. But yeah, so I loved RE3 as a kid. I don't really mind the way that they handled Nemesis. I know that was controversial for a lot of people. They preferred Mr. X. I think the problem with me with Mr. X in RE2, as intimidating as he was, as well designed, interesting as he was, I just got annoyed with him after a while. I'm like, dude, just stop following me. Like, this is so annoying. Like, it's scary at first, but then you hear the footsteps above you in the Raccoon City Police Department. You're like, again, dude, come on, we just went through this. So I prefer the way I prefer the way they handled Nemesis with the timed cutscenes and the timed boss fights. I know that's not a popular opinion, but it's mine. I also really love Carlos and I love Jill. I think they have much better characters than Leon and Claire. I think the story's much better. I didn't hate RE2 make, but I didn't like it as much as most people do. I was tempted, honestly, to start speedrunning it because it's not super hard in terms of how to learn how to speedrun, and people have already got it down under an hour. I will say against it, it's a little too pricey for what it is. It's a short game. Some people definitely did not like how short it was. They tried to package this stupid multiplayer that I never touched.
Perhaps.
Talking about everybody loves Resident Evil Resistance. I definitely.
That's right. That's what it's called. I completely forgot what it was even called.
I definitely didn't write a review for it, and then completely lost enthusiasm for it to actually record it and get anything else done on it because the game sucks.
What were you gonna say, James?
I think possibly worse for me because I bought the collector's edition.
Oh,
right, you did.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that's why. See, now we've uncovered the mystery of why James doesn't like.
Okay, no. Here's the thing though. Here's my problem with it. The thing that I love so much about the Resident Evil 2 remake, and like I'm not a big Resident Evil mark by any means. Like don't have a lot of experience with the series, right? the thing that I love so much about Resident Evil 2 remake is how it sort of builds that tension. Like you're going through these dark hallways, you're going through the same place, and it's not scary. Like I don't like horror games. It's not scary, but it's intense. So you don't know what's around the corner. It's not necessarily like, okay, I want to quit now because there's something chasing me, but it's like you're walking through and you don't know if a zombie's going to jump out at you, and it keeps you on your toes the whole way through. And all of that is sort of lost in Resident Evil 3 Remake. They sort of throw that all in the bin, and that was the main thing that I liked about 2 Remake.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience. I felt definitely a lot of tension with the way that they handled certain enemies, but certainly they have different atmospheres. Resident Evil 3 ditches some of the puzzles and relies a little bit more on action, especially with the Carlos sections. I like that, but I understand that to some folks that's like ditching the core elements of what makes Resident Evil. I don't agree with that, and I mean I agree that the complicated or convoluted puzzles are an integral identity, but it's not like they don't have any puzzles. It's just they have less than RE2 made. So yeah, I like that though. For me, I like the action more than I like the puzzles, and I really enjoyed the weapons. I wish I would have gotten more into, because I did check out the speedrunning scene for a little bit, and it seemed rather fun. And like I said, speedrunners got it down to under an hour, which is really impressive. So the game can be completed in like 7 or 8 casually. So I think it's a great game on sale, but definitely don't buy the collector's edition. That would be a mistake.
I will say, if we had awards, this one would definitely be in the running for me for the way that came out this year award.
Honestly, I feel like that was so much of the games that came out in the first 6 months. Like, I think after The Last of Us Part 2, I think a lot of stuff just became engulfed by its shadow for me. Not that I didn't appreciate or enjoy them, but it's harder to. Honestly, this year is such a heck that it's tough to believe that Animal Crossing came out this year or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much everything from March till The Last of Us 2's release kind of just has been lost in translation for so many people, just because, I mean, like that whole 3-month period happened so fast and so rapidly, and there was so much shit in it, and then The Last of Us 2 comes out and it's like, oh yeah, gaming is a thing. That's right.
Yeah, but, very much in that same vein of like, everything got lost. I'm sure this is on no one's list. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Call of Duty Warzone, I completely thought that came out in like August of last year. I had memories of playing it last year. So much so that when it was at the Game Awards, I was like, this can't be here. If people are complaining about Among Us, what are they going to say about Warzone? And then I looked it up and I was like, no way!
I'm in the exact same boat, which is bizarre because Modern Warfare, the game that game is a part of, didn't come out until November last year, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but you wouldn't think it. Right. So that was number 6 for Dory. Mitch, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is Avengers, or Marvel's Avengers.
The game that you scored
a 6.5.
A 6.5 is your number 6 for the year, ladies and gentlemen.
So Mitch, walk me through this, buddy. How does this math work out?
Honestly, I just didn't play that many games this year, so frankly, I'm just going with what I had.
Default.
And you still scored it above Astro's Playroom. Can I just say?
Probably because I put in about. I mean, I looked at my time with the PS5. Somehow, 100 hours into this game. I don't know how, but it says I have 100 hours into this game, so I'm just gonna run with it.
Not.
I will say, yeah.
I will say, I had my list of top 10 games. I had another list of games that I enjoyed below that, and then I had another list of games that I didn't actually make a list of because I didn't like them that much, and Avengers was at the
Oh,
bottom
no.
of that list.
Oh no!
Look, I think as I will say, the thing that bumped this up on my list for me is the fact that after playing this game on PS5, like PS5 is the only way I recommend people actually play this game because I've had 0 crashes, 0 frame rate issues. I mean, you know, obviously the internal design flaws are still there, but technically the game runs as smoothly as can be on the PS5. And I'm so annoyed that people had to experience it in the shit state that they did on current gen consoles and PC. But I mean, look, I think the thing that I really still do, you know, have praise for with Avengers is that story campaign with Kamala Khan and everyone. I think that's still by far the best, you know, part of this game. I mean, even that was probably on like a 7.5 or an 8 if I was pushing it. But I think the story definitely like outweighs a lot of the flaws I had with this game, and ultimately why I didn't just abandon it after those 10 or so hours. Because, you know, and I mean, not to mention the Kate Bishop DLC came out and it was perfectly serviceable for free DLC, and it had a surprising amount of content and longevity to it. So I'm I remain semi-hopeful for this game's future. That's all I'll say, really.
You know, to be fair, Mitch, it is a service game, so serviceable is what they.
I mean,
Nice.
yeah,
It's in the name, Mitch. It's in the name. They warned you.
Sorry, I should have
that is
asked.
true.
I've been forgetting to ask. Did anyone else have Resident Evil 3 or Avengers on their lists?
I did. Well, funnily enough, I have Resident Evil 3 as my number 5, but do you want me to talk about that
Gotcha.
now? Or okay,
No, that's great.
yeah.
We can skip. We've talked about that already. Unless there was something else you wanted to add, desperately.
I mean, really, I was just gonna say that. Well, really, the funny thing is that, like, despite I like it more. No, I like it less than Dory, but I seemingly have it higher up on my list. So figure that shit out.
I don't know that we can.
Mitch, your list is an enigma, and the further we go down, the more questions I have about your list.
I mean, I'd say my top 5 are, you know, albeit Resident Evil 3, my top 5 are pretty solid.
Mitch's number 1 is going to be Genshin Impact, and none of us were ready for it.
I can't wait for Immortals Phoenix Rising to be number 2.
No, guys, it's Godfall, obviously.
Damn it! I was
Oh, there you go.
Damn it! I was like, wait, I'm forgetting one slightly mediocre looter slasher.
Yeah, Godfall.
Okay, Dory, we're back to you already. How do you feel about
we?
that? Yes, we are.
Oh my god. Okay, I can't handle the pressure. Look, all right, everyone, I have a story for you. Okay,
This is your number 5. Yes.
This is my number 5. I have a little story for you about a game called Hades. Now, this game is flippin' amazing. I think Nintendo is lying to me at this point. It says 45 hours or more, but it's been there for a while. I think I've got like 60 hours or more, and Nintendo just doesn't want me to be impressed / horrified with myself. I do not.
Do you know what is? Do you know what's nuts?
What?
Firstly, I expected you to have Hades higher on your list.
I know.
Yeah.
Me too.
Secondly, it's also number 5 on my list.
Wow, that is nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will say why it's not higher on my list. All right, so I love Hades a lot. I love the combat. I love the characters. I love the story. Unfortunately, I didn't find it as deeply affecting as the rest of the games in my top 5. Like, I like the characters a lot, but I don't find their narrative arcs as satisfying or fulfilling. They're good. They're well written. There's nothing wrong with them necessarily, but they just didn't affect me as much as the storylines in my top 4. So that's basically what it came. Like my the other 5 was easier to make. This top 5 was so hard because honestly, like score wise, like Hades could have been my number 2, honestly. And it's not even an outclassing thing. Like all the games that are above Hades are not like outclassing it or are better somehow because they're AAA games. Supergiant made a phenomenal roguelite that even I enjoy, and I don't like roguelites. I don't like roguelikes or lights or any kind of rogue games because I hate starting over in games. But what Hades does so freaking well is that it makes every time you die, it makes it a learning experience. You usually feel like you deserve to die in some way because you messed up an attack or you weren't being careful, you got greedy or whatever. It's the classic Dark Souls formula, right? It's like it's tough, but it's fair. And so yeah, I mean, and it's the animation's top notch. There's very little lag or frames dropped, even during a lot of difficult gameplay or enemies. The bosses are thrilling. I mean, I've spent so long on this game, and I don't usually play games for more than 20 hours, honestly. There's very few games that or if I do, it's a sign that I really love a game, like with Outer Worlds or Disco Elysium or Kingdom Hearts or something. Like, generally the game has to be really good to keep my attention for that long. But yeah, Hades is excellent, and everybody should go play it. And Supergiant deserves all the awards for game direction, and not another studio. But anyway.
Yeah, what I really love about it is the fact that, like, and I don't play a lot of roguelikes, so this may be the standard, and I just don't know about it. I've played Dead Cells, and it didn't really have this. But the way that you go about progressing and unlocking stuff, it's done in such a way, like, you have multiple different currencies, and there's different things that you can unlock. So it feels like you're always making, like, a lot of progress all the time. You're always buffing your stats or unlocking new gear. Or even the one that I'm quite big on, you can renovate the palace or whatever it's called, the place you're trying to escape. You can like add in different rooms that you can go through, because the rooms, they always randomize so that no two runs are ever the same, and you can like you can pay to have like new rooms added in where you can like take a breather and heal up and that sort of thing. And I haven't finished the game yet, but I'm compelled to keep going because it feels like there's a heavy progression there, more so than other roguelikes I've played.
Yeah, I will say, so some of the terminology, I mean, basically roguelites are rogue games that are going to actually keep things over death. Some games don't. I think those are called roguelikes. And then roguelite.
Who cares? It's all the same.
It gets silly, but anyway. Yeah, Hades does a really good job at making you feel like, you get something out of dying, and you keep something with you, and it's good to keep pushing. I mean, I want to be clear. I beat the game a long time ago, but I still haven't hit. There's basically an ending, another ending, and then there's like an epilogue. And so I haven't gotten to the epilogue yet, and I've spent almost over 50 hours easily on the game, and I'm still seeing new dialogue written, which is just bananas. It's just absolutely wild, and the voice acting is amazing, and I really, honestly, this could have been my number 2. It's just that a lot of the things that work really well to me just don't hit me as hard as some of the other games higher up on my list, and literally that's pretty much it, because the gameplay is pretty much perfect to me. I don't think you could do a better job with a roguelite. I mean, I hope somebody does, obviously, but I don't know how they will.
Does anyone else have Hades on their list?
Sadly, no.
Nope.
No. In that case, Mahvl, we'll go to you for your number 5, please.
Okay, so my number 5, if you thought number 8, Among Us, was a travesty to the year 2020 in terms of, coming out this year, I've got a little game called Spider-Man Remastered. I'm counting this as a 2020 release because I never got to play Spider-Man PS4. My first time playing through the Spider-Man 2018 story was in Spider-Man Remastered. I think I'm more going to use this as a time to actually talk to you guys about this game, because we weren't around when Spider-Man 2018 came out, and I'm sure we all have some very strong opinions on it, but let me just get started by saying I grew up like the biggest Spider-Man fan that I think could ever exist as a child. I remember being super excited to get like a Spider-Man washcloth. That's like the dumbest thing to get excited about, but it was that level of excitement to me. The first memory I have, I think I was about 3 years old, and I remember sitting on my dad's lap watching Spider-Man 2. specifically a train sequence in that movie. It's such an important part of who I am and the person I become today that when I got the chance to play through Spider-Man Remastered, I got a lot of those feelings again. Getting to play through this story with Peter Parker and getting to see all of these villains, rising up and getting to take them down in the same character, done arguably to the best he's ever been done. It's just so incredible. I'm sure it would have been higher on my list if it had come out, in 2020 as an actual game. But I just finished playing through that game about 2 weeks ago, and it still stands as one of the most incredible gaming experiences I've ever had. And now I will let you guys talk about Spider-Man 2018 because I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I feel like I wasn't as hot on it as other people when it came. I'm a big Insomniac fan. I love Insomniac, one of my favorite studios. And I love the game. Maybe not as much as other people. Like I think I had it at like an 8.5 when it came out. I think the addition of 60 FPS on the PS5 and ray tracing and the Miles Morales photo mode just it brings it up to a new level. And especially playing it immediately after finishing Miles Morales, I'm sort of reminded. It sort of puts in perspective the direction of that game, just how good it is. Like I feel like I like it better than Miles Morales, and that's put in stark contrast. Like that's put on full display when I go from one to the other.
Yeah,
and I haven't played much of the remaster. I've played a few missions because I spent a lot of time in photo mode, didn't get very far, but. Yeah, I think it's a great game. It's not on my list because I've got real 2020 games to put on my list, Mahvl.
I can't say much about the remaster because I haven't played it, but I did love 2018. It was one of the reasons why I was so excited to have a PS4 in 2018. I've already talked about how I was a huge fan of Spider-Man. I had some Spider-Man curtains up for a while. I mean, I still love Spider-Man. I've got a freaking shirt somewhere over there. So I big fan of Spider-Man, and I loved what this game did back then. I remember growing up with the PS2 and playing Spider-Man 2 and being like, oh my god, they did it. I can't believe it. This is the Spider-Man game I've always wanted. I grew up playing the Neversoft PS1 Spider-Man game, which was also amazing, but didn't have that open world because, there was gas in the streets and stuff. You couldn't get down there. It was just too dangerous. Don't worry about it. It's okay. So I was like, this will never be topped. I'm like, I played that game, and then I think I played Ultimate Spider-Man, and I was like, oh, this is really cool, but this is just Spider-Man 2 with some slightly different graphics and slightly different characters, and you get to beat up Wolverine as Venom, and like, what the hell? And then, I didn't play anything until 2018. I missed all of those other weird titles that were not tied to movies, except for, I know Spider-Man 3 came out, but we don't talk about that game. Just like we don't talk about that movie. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I was a huge fan of it when it came out, and the web swing is just so on point. The voice acting, the story is great. I don't know. I don't even know what I really have to add that hasn't been said before about it. It was like a 9 out of 10 for me at the time. I can't imagine it's any worse now remastered. So yeah, I almost platinumed it. So
that final fight. Are we past the point of like spoilers? Can I say spoilers for this game now? It's been 2 years.
I would. It depends. If it's that spoiler that's revealed very early on, I'd say it's fair game.
It's related to that. It's about the final boss fight. Final boss fight where it takes place, specifically when you are on the side of the building. I know, heavy spoilers here.
Yeah.
That is one of the most gorgeous and intense fights I think in any game I've ever played. Going on it on the PS5 with ray tracing on, it's everything I would have imagined. It might be my favorite next gen showcase, which is weird because it's a previous gen game. But having the reflections of all of those fights going down the side of the super glassy, like metallic building, it's so wonderful. If you like the 2018 game and you've been looking for an excuse to play it, please try Remastered. Give it a shot. Ray tracing in 60 frames a second is something you really just you need to experience it.
Godlike. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think before we move on, I'll also just sort of, address the elephant in the room. Peter Parker's new face is so much better
Yeah.
than the original
I
one.
agree.
It's so much better. It's like, at first I remember we were all like, I don't know, I'm not too sure. And then like you see it in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh my god, this is so much better. What have we been talking about this whole time?
Yeah.
I still think they could have got a better face. There's still points where
Agreed.
his youthfulness, his youthful look still gets me. But I guess he's sort of on the same level as the old face for me.
Yeah, he looks more human in this one. That's weird which is weird because both of them are based off of like actual like people in real life. But
I
think
believe you're insulting the original face model. Man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, whatever your name is, but like I don't know. I just think this face model fits this Peter Parker and his, at least his. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how he looks too young and youthful, but I think it matches his youthfulness, but also like at the same time his optimism really comes through a lot more just with this facial model. Yeah, I mean that's really all I have to add. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, we'll move on. Dory, we've come around to you once again.
Oh, geez, really?
We're looking for your number 4 this time.
Oh, because I'm Resident Evil 3, so yeah.
Oh, right. My number 4. Something. Ghost of a Chance. It's Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I loved Ghost of Tsushima. I will say first off, I am very picky about open world games. Breath of the Wild. I'm not as hot on it as other people are.
Sacrilege.
I made it 4 or 5 hours and I haven't gone back, and it's been months. Anyway, so I'm very picky about open world games, but I loved this game. I love the way that they did Guiding Wind. I think Sucker Punch, first off, they're a Western studio full of, I presume, predominantly white people, right? And so I was very nervous about this game at the start of things. I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but they clearly did their research. They clearly love, the island itself, and they got a lot of help from, and the voice cast is very rich, diverse. It's just a great game from bottom to top. I think the gameplay is great. There's some aspects of Ghosts that are not quite as polished as Samurai, but I enjoyed being a Ghost pretty much throughout the whole thing. The narrative is excellent. The voice acting's excellent. The graphics are stunning. I mean, there are definitely times where I still think that opening segment where you come out of the battle and the title screen is right there. I mean, it's just one of the best video game things in 2020. I mean, my jaw, if I was a cartoon, my jaw would have hit the floor. Like, it was excellent. I just really enjoyed my time with that game. I didn't 100% it because I think by the time I was done with the story, I felt really satisfied. But I did come back for the free multiplayer that is also excellent. I didn't quite complete it. I think I'm almost raid ready. It's ridiculous. I'm like level 99 or some bullshit. But I just stopped for Miles Morales, and then I lost momentum.
Yeah.
But I mean, it added another 10 hours on my gameplay, and I'd already played for 30 hours. So this game is just phenomenal on a lot of levels. I know some folks felt like it was kind of rehashing open world stuff, but I felt like, to the extent I know, I was looking at you. But to an extent, I think it rehashes those elements to really good effect. And it didn't really get stale for me.
Anyone else got Ghost of Tsushima in their list?
I've got as my number 3, and I mean, I'd say I'm pretty much in the exact same camp as Dory. I haven't finished it, but I think it's definitely it's one of my favorite open worlds to explore, by far. I think, and it's not even just, I'd say, because of the gameplay mechanics itself. It's just because I think the guiding wind mechanic is probably the best thing that could happen to open worlds, because you're not actually focused. Even a compass, I know it's basically just another form of waypoint, but I think it's such a dynamic and diegetic form of just hey, you idiot, go this way. That it actually made me sort of look at the world instead of, because even I remember when Assassin's Creed Origins came out, everyone's like, "Oh, the compass is going to revolutionize open world games. You're not going to look at minimaps anymore." And then the compass just turned into the new minimap. Whereas I really hope that, at least in the future, some developers get, a bit inventive with how they build in interesting and dynamic ways of guiding the player through their open world environment. Also,
That-
I think one more thing. One more thing. I think this game is probably one of the few open world, story-based games that actually cured the that the really annoying, I guess, trend where it's like, okay, you're in a mission, now you're just gonna like ride on your horse and just talk to this one character for 10 minutes straight without it getting boring. This game didn't really get boring for me, at least in the story aspect of it so far. Anyways,
That-
that's me done. I think you want to say something, James.
Oh, I want to say a lot of things, Mitch.
Hmm.
I reviewed Ghost of Tsushima. I gave it, I believe, if I remember correctly,
An
an
8.
eight.
I think it was
an
an 8, which I agree with. Yeah.
I think
I,
it's a
I
solid.
remember that. Yeah.
I think it's
That's
a
an
solid
incorrect score.
8. I think it's the correct
Yeah.
score. I think it's a solid 8 because the thing is, right? The story, I'm gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna get like hate for this. These are probably seen as bad takes. The story is only okay. It's like it's passable. It's nothing special. The characters are only okay. They're passable. They're nothing special. They're all
Yeah.
they're all 8 out of 10. Those, or maybe 8.5 out of 10, but it gets dragged down by those side activities, those open world activities. They're just so generic. Like you're going about taking out enemy bases. We've done it a million times before. I want something after playing games like Red Dead Redemption or The Witcher 3. I want something new from my open world games. I don't want to go and take down enemy bases. I want to take part in interesting stories. I want to go and discover stuff. I don't want to look at a map because you say like the Guiding Wind, it revolutionized waypoints and stuff, and sure, right, it does a lot for that. I don't think it's as good as everyone else thinks it is because like I'm still looking. It's still a waypoint of sorts. I'm still looking at the world to see. And yes, I'm looking at the world rather than a minimap. It's a little better than a minimap, but it's not. It's not amazing because you're still looking at something and I personally still had to like swipe up on the touchpad every now and then to get the wind to whoosh up again, and you're still looking at the map and you're still going from place to place doing a checklist, and I just think that drags it down so much. And the combat is great, but it's not astounding, and just I don't know, everything. There's nothing in that game that makes me go, wow, that's amazing.
I mean, I think because of my persnicketyness with open worlds, I've also, you mentioned Witcher 3, you mentioned Red Dead. Those are games I haven't really played because they don't really appeal to me. And so I think Ghost of Tsushima was really just a much more accessible version of those kinds of games. And I don't think the combat doesn't blow me away or anything like that, but I really liked it. The parry window always felt really satisfying to get. The showdowns felt really fun and satisfying. I don't think the side missions are always great, but I don't mind enemy bases if there's more than one way to approach it. And I think with being able to do it as either Ghost or Samurai, it freed me up to not feel too, it definitely got repetitive, but also I never felt like I had to do those enemy bases unless I really wanted to get like a legendary scroll or something like that, or I wanted to get some sort of armor. It was as a part of a mission. But I was always excited to like take on new enemies and take on challenges and stuff. And I think a big part of the reason why I like the game so much is I like sneaking around and going behind enemies and being a ghost and stuff like that. And so those enemy bases were always a good way for me to figure out if I could do it. I mean, I still remember in Horizon Zero Dawn, one of my favorite moments of that whole game is when I took out an entire enemy camp and I was never detected. And I did a little dance after because I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I just took out every single one, never got caught. It's not like the AI is amazing there, right? But I mean, it's decent, it's basic. So yeah, I don't know. I think you're right at the first half of the game that I didn't see what the big deal was, but I think especially in the third and fourth act, I think Ghost of Tsushima really picks up, and I think the characters become a lot more interesting, and so does the narrative. I think also the side stories, the main side stories, I'm saying, with
the characters and everything.
Yeah, I think it really interweaves with the main story really, really well towards the end. But I mean, I think one of the weakest things about Ghost of Tsushima is that it's a bit of a hurdle. You have to really get through those first 2 sections, which aren't bad, but I think I agree with you. That's where I agree with you, James. I think they're just passable, and then I think the game gets really good in a hurry. But whatever.
Sure. And I will say, I did claim that I didn't think anything was amazing in the game. I forgot about the music. The music is in places, maybe not the whole thing.
And the photo mode.
No, I think the photo mode's a little overrated, I'll be honest.
Oh wow. Wow, okay. I mean, that's what I just want to say for all of the fans out there who wanted a spoiler cast of Ghost of Tsushima. I'm not pointing any fingers, but there's a reason why we didn't get around to it.
Okay.
Other way.
No.
Damn it!
She knows where the boxes are in the recording. She got it right.
Yeah. Mitch is trying to confuse me.
Okay, so yeah, I there are some strong points. I do think the photo mode is pretty good. Not the best I've ever seen though, even before Miles Morales came out. But Dory, we're still on you, because we've already heard everyone else's number 4, so we're on your number 3 now.
My number 3, okay, so we're gonna go back to a time where I'm like 9 or 10 years old. I'm in front of this TV that's way too big for my infinitesimal eyes, and I'm playing a little game called Final Fantasy VII, and I don't understand what the hell is going on. Why am I in this big train yard? How do I fight these monsters? This is really hard. I'm gonna give up. And then I never go back to Final Fantasy for another like 20 freaking years. And it's true. I had not played a Final Fantasy game since the original, since I played Final Fantasy VII Remake this year. I did not expect to love it as much as I did, but I love the characters so much. My favorite little eco-terrorists. And I just think the characters are charming. The graphics are amazing. Some of the NPCs, that's a little different, but for the most part, I think the game is done really, really well. I'm obviously slightly biased because I already like action RPGs. Tetsuya Nomura, who also directs and writes Kingdom Hearts, wrote this one. So any plot weirdness towards the end, I don't mind. I know there's some controversy with the ending. But I actually really like it. But I'm also saying that as someone who's very divorced from the larger franchise and lore. So I understand that, I might not have the correct take here. But the combat is amazing. I think everybody can agree with that. The combat is fantastic. It meshes turn-based and real-time action very, very well. The boss fights are thrilling. I thought the story was generally really, really good. Voice acting was okay to solid. Yeah, and the music's flipping amazing. It's one of the best soundtracks of the whole goddamn year. It is the best soundtrack of the year. That's one of the things that Jeff Keighley really got right, and his whole board of committee there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling to say anything else about this game in short, but but this game is phenomenal, and I can't wait for the next one.
It's my number 2. I absolutely adore this game. Like, it's hard to put my finger on. Like, there's something about the writing and the characters specifically that's just so special, that really latches onto you and grips you. And beyond that, like, there's just the pacing of the game, right? There's slow moments, and then there's these big bombastic boss fights, but I think the character of the game really comes out in those slower moments when you're just walking through a level with another character and talking. I feel like that's what I like most about a lot of these really good games that are coming out, these big AAA games, when they're not afraid to take those slow moments and take you away from the action. And I think I've mentioned that in my review as well, because I also reviewed this one. It does a lot of that really well. And even as someone who didn't play the original Final Fantasy VII, I came away from this just being astounded, and I can't wait for the next part either, because, there's some controversy around the ending of the game, but I personally I'm just on a cliffhanger. I can't wait to see what happens next. I can't wait to see what everything means, because there is a lot of confusing stuff at the end of that game. And I know there's also a lot of controversy about the game. We seem to have lost Mitch's video, but I'm sure we'll get it back soon. There's also a lot of controversy around the game not just being the whole Final Fantasy VII story and just being the first part of it, the Midgar part. But I think, like, playing through the game, like, it more than shows why it deserves to be its own thing. Like, why it stands on its own. And I think, like, if they nail the second, third, or fourth, or however many parts they do of this, if they nail those parts, like, this could be one of the best video game sort of series within a series. Like, this could be one of the best video game series of all time.
I will say, by the way, the reason it's not a little higher on my list is because there are a couple portions I feel are a bit of padding. There are a couple of sections I found very frustrating. There's a part where you're playing Cloud by himself and he has to attack these enemies that can go in the air, and I completely like lost myself at that stuff. That stuff got real frustrating. But I think generally speaking, this game, I almost considered going back and playing it on hard mode. And I've already emphasized this enough, but I don't usually spend a ton of time on games. Like, I usually finish them and then I'm good. I'm not a completionist, not a 100%er, but I really did consider getting 100% on Final Fantasy VII. I really did consider playing it again, the whole thing on hard mode. And I mean, one of the reasons I didn't is because of all those crawl through spaces or whatever they call them, which Final Fantasy VII has kind of played with. But yeah, I don't know. It's an excellent game, and I couldn't care less that it's not the whole Final Fantasy VII story, because they really made it worth your time and worth your money. And I never expected to get invested. I mean, when I saw the trailer for the new Final Fantasy game, I was actually kind of excited. I'm like, why? I'm getting excited about a Final Fantasy game. This is very strange to me, because I haven't done that in, like I said, a long time.
Yeah. I just really, really love those characters. I think they're absolutely phenomenal. Mahvl, your number 3, please, sir.
My number 3 is not a PlayStation game. I'm sorry to break the trend. It is Phasmophobia. Have any of you given that game a shot yet?
Not yet.
Nope, not up my alley, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know, Phasmophobia is a multiplayer ghost detective game. That might be the best way to put it. The goal of the game is to enter a house or a school or a prison and try to figure out what kind of ghost is haunting it. You're not trying to kill the ghost. You're not trying to get it out. You're simply trying to go in, figure out what it is, and try to survive the experience. And for me, this has taken the spot of Among Us, where it's me and a couple of my friends, playing along with this game. But it's managed to keep our attention. There is a gameplay loop there where you genuinely can see yourself getting better. Leveling system, it means nothing. After you get past 8 levels, you've unlocked everything there is to have in the game. But the whole purpose is to solve what the ghost is, get money, buy equipment, so you can solve the next ghost and keep going. And there's only like 5 or 6 maps, but it changes every single time. It is genuinely terrifying if you're playing it by yourself. If you've got a fun group of friends there, it's easy to eliminate it. And one of my favorite things about this game, it is playable in VR, and that's how I've been playing it for the last 2 weeks or so. Like I said, I've been playing this for months now with my friends, but I had an experience last night that bumped this game up to the number 3 spot. I had walked into this house with a couple of my buddies. One of them had stayed in the truck because they were the one that spent the most money on equipment for our whole expedition this time. And the other one had gone inside with me to try to investigate and figure out, what we were dealing with. As one of the hunts started, your flashlights are going. I'm playing in VR, so I see this all happening around me. I start hearing footsteps coming behind me on the stairs. my friend Andy, he's walking down with me, and I turn around right on time for him to say, "Oh, see you, Mahvl." And immediately I see him get lifted into the air and just getting strangled on the steps and dropped right down in front of me. And then the hunt stops, and my friend in the car is shouting at me, "Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Get out of there, get out of there." And in that moment, my brain could not tell the difference between what was reality and what was the video game. Everything in my body started shaking. I couldn't handle what I was looking at. I knew it was a game, of course. Uh, but in that moment, I couldn't feel the difference. And the only thing that brought me out of it and got me to keep going was my friend, as the ghost, picking up a little yellow cup and putting it down the stairs repeatedly to try to get me to laugh. He entered the Discord call we were in, and was like, "Hey, Mahvl, look at this." And then he just kept dropping it over and over again. And eventually that got my spirits up to the point where I felt I could go, up this set of stairs. My friend in the car was screaming at me like, "It's not that scary, dude. We've been playing this for 3 months. You can handle this." But I was broken. I couldn't move. It was such an incredible virtual reality experience that it is probably one of the coolest things I've ever felt in a video game. I was then killed, and it was left up to my poor friend in the car who had gotten all of our money to come in and take pictures of our bodies. But man, just that experience alone, it's really something everyone should give a shot. Even if like horror games aren't up your alley, it's not something that either of my friends are into either. Neither of them like scary games, but get a group of people together. I think it's like $15, and just go in and play the first 10 matches or so. Try to get some money. I promise you it is worth your time, and it is easily my number 3 favorite gaming experience.
Honestly, as someone with minimal knowledge of the game, you've kind of convinced me. I feel like I need to play this now.
Yes, please.
I can definitely see why it's so high on your list.
Quick question though, is the end goal for getting money in the game a lucrative 1-year deal with TLC for a ghost hunting show?
That would have been incredible, and I need to see that in a future update.
I assume nobody else has this on the lists. Nope. Okay, in that case, I'll move on to my number 3. I'm surprised none of you. I'm not surprised, but disappointed that none of you have had this on your lists thus far. My number 3 is Media Molecule's Dreams, which came out in early access last year, but it came out officially. It came out officially this year, so it's eligible.
Right. It's another one of those games that kind of fell into the void of early 2020 games. Yeah.
But it came out officially in 2020, and honestly, like, there's so much I could say about it. It's like, and I've said it a million times already, it's like the YouTube of video games, and it really is. Like, even if you don't have any interest in making games or trying out the creation features in it, there's still so much enjoyment you can get out of it just playing other people's things. And it's not only games, right? People make music, people make short films. Like, earlier today, I was on Dreams, and I was looking up sort of Christmas stuff because I was getting festive. And I saw this animated short, which involved these 2 adorable little creatures, who didn't talk, and a snowman. And I won't spoil like the plot of this like little short run, but it was genuinely like it was so sort of endearing. It was genuinely like one of those sort of Disney Pixar shorts that you'd find on Disney Plus or something like that. And like it's a game that very much relies on the talent of its user base, but that user base has a lot of talent even off the bat. And like, it's so interesting as well looking at the stuff that the community made early on compared to the stuff that they've made now when they've had more time. Like, the games there's so many more games, and the games have so much more depth to them. There's so many sort of bigger games in it. And yeah, it's certainly probably the most interesting thing on my list, because it's technically not a game, it's a creation tool, but it's done in such a way that there is a game there. And there is actually a game there. There's a campaign. which is just sort of thrown in with all the other creations, but it's called Art's Dream, and it's like a campaign made by Media Molecule. It's nothing incredible, but basically you play as this guy Art, and he's trying to get his mojo back or something like that, and he's it's all very musical, and it's like a bad trip really, or a good trip even. It's basically it's like you're on acid, and a lot of stuff goes down. It's very short, it's a few hours, and then at the end there's this musical number, and it's a cover of Time Moves Slow by Bad Bad Not Good, and it's one of the best musical moments of the year for sure. It's just really, and like, not even just because the cover is really good, but the video sort of thing that goes along with it is just, it's so hard to explain because like it does so much interesting visual stuff, but Dreams is a bottomless hole of just sheer joy, and like it had to be high up on my list at some point. It's not above my number one pick or Final Fantasy VII because I just adore those games, but it's just incredible. Anyone else played it? Got it on their lists? Nope. What can I say except what's wrong with you, all of you? There's a free demo. Come on.
The crazy thing is, it's like right up my alley. I've just never taken the chance to like actually bite the bullet and get it. I mean, everything I've seen from it looks just incredible, and I'm sure one day I will get around to it. Maybe if they ever do a PC port, I might give it a shot. If they do a PC and do VR, that seems so perfect.
If I can convince you, because there's also VR support, and I think they are planning on putting it on PC at some point, probably. It's like, it's one of those games where, and this is certainly how I play it, you can just jump in for 10 minutes at a time, see what's new, and then jump back out again. I mean, I'm not joking, it really is like, because everything's so short on it, because everyone just makes like something they've got in their head, and then it's usually all like little small ideas that people have. So you just jump on, play a couple things, and jump off again, and it really is like YouTube in that way, where you can just use it to sort of waste time. And everything is just so interesting. Like, it's very rare that you come upon a game in Dreams and you play it and you think that wasn't worth my time. Because everything, I feel like even the stuff that's less interesting, you click on it, you go, oh, this isn't gripping me, and then click off it and go and find something else. There's just so much appeal to that. So yeah, definitely, I mean, give it a try. There's a free demo, so give it a try. That's my number 3. So now, Mahvl, we're back to you.
Oh, wow.
For your number 2, please.
All right, and I'm ready to take all of your number ones. The Last of Us Part 2 is my number 2 game of the year.
The elephant in the room.
Number 1, sacrilege.
My number 1 is actually Frog Detective Episode 1 and Frog Detective Episode 2. I got you.
No.
Joke's on you. My number 1's Godfall. You chump.
All right, Mahvl. So say your last words before we boot you from this call.
See you later. No.
Wait a second. Wait a second, because I know what your number 1 is, which means that's going to be the last game we talk about on this part. But just to get the elephant in the room out of the way, Dory, it's your number 1. Mitch, it's your number 1.
C.
And it's also my number 1.
Yep.
So I guess this is the big Last of Us Part 2 segment. Let's kick it off.
Yeah, who wants to go first? I knew I was going to be taking this away from all of you, so I will let all of you have free reign.
You thief of joy.
Absolute monster. Absolute monster. I've already talked a lot. I feel like I've gone a lot lately. Somebody else want to go? Mitch?
I mean, honestly, I kind of talk best when I bounce off of one of you guys, but I think The Last of Us Part 2 is kind of like, it's kind of weird that a game that's so dark and bleak in a year that is so dark and bleak still managed to be one of the best things to come out of this year. In general, like video game wise. I think, it's not without its controversies, of course, but I think and the game has flaws. Like, it's not
Oh, yeah.
perfect, but I think the stuff that it does well, it does fucking amazingly well.
Yeah.
Like, story, characters, acting, debatably writing, gameplay as well. Like, it makes me huge leaps, like in gameplay wise, and so many huge leaps past the first one, and then, but I think as well it makes a huge leaps in maturity. I think from the first game, like this feels like a much more mature and down to earth game than the first one ever did. Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't imagine 2013 Naughty Dog having the same level, like quality of writing and themes and depth, like emotional depth, back in 2013 as they do now.
It's just so. It's like you say, it's not a happy game, but it's so like emotionally challenging in ways that like the first game by all means has like dark themes, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
like I was one of many people who didn't want them to make a sequel to that game because I thought that ending of that game just stood on its own so well.
It still does as
Yeah,
well, but yeah.
but then I was like, are they gonna ruin it? Are they gonna ruin that ending by making a new game? And then it came out, and I played it, and it broke me for like a month. And it's now not only my favorite game of all time, it's my favorite piece of media, full stop, that I've ever watched, played, what have you, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it builds on the foundation of the first game and on those characters, and it twists your emotions in such a way, like it uses your connection to the first game to really just
And
twist you.
yeah.
And I love it so much.
Yeah,
Like it
absolutely.
goes in directions you don't expect. It's bold. It makes decisions that are not safe. Like, you know, a game this budget, you would forgive it for making safe decisions, you know, trying to play to the whole audience and make it a game that everyone loved. But they didn't do that. They made interesting choices. They took the story in an interesting direction, in multiple interesting directions, and it paid off. Like, the game is better for it.
Yeah, I think because I think everyone can universally agree that, at least, you know, in their first time running through, they had, to be as vague as possible, there were some doubts about how the game would go past the second half. But then when you get to that end point, you kind of look back on the whole experience and go, that was really well done. You know, like, to put it lightly, like that, I wouldn't have had it done any other way. And I think, and I mean, like, not to delve into the controversy too much, but I think like after reading like a couple of like the big Last of Us Part 2 rewrites, you can just tell that none of them respect the characters in the way that they should. Like, The Last of Us Part 2, like it respects the characters in the sense that they are true to those characters. Like, you know, like they might not treat them well, but they respect them in the way that this makes sense for, you know, this makes sense for Ellie, this makes sense for Joel, etc., etc. So I think, I think what this game really shines in is the fact that these characters, you can tell, are special to the writers and everyone involved, and they did their damned best.
And like,
yeah,
you know, it's the same with the first game. It's not a new thing, but like, they are very much like human beings, and human beings have flaws. And those characters have flaws, and they're on full display. Nobody expects you to think that those characters are like saints, or that nobody expects you to agree with their decisions, but they expect you to empathize with their decisions and see their point of view and see why they're doing the things that they do and understand that. And they do that so bloody well.
Yeah, I think like the term, I'll say one last thing, sorry. I think the term ludonarrative dissonance like really comes to mind when you think about this game, and it's like it's kind of, it's a weird thing that this game does, where it's like it's fully like, you don't have ludonarrative dissonance is on full display in this game, but they weaponize it in a sense. That's the point. Like, they want you to be sort of distant from the actual emotions of the characters, but at the same time, they want you to, as you said, empathize with the characters and understand what they're doing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I'll say a couple things.
Yeah.
First off, I know I said jokingly that Frog Detective 1 and 2 is my number one, but I just want to say those are actually very cute, wholesome games, and they're real games, and you should check them out. So absolutely no disservice to the creator.
Also, can I just interject real quick?
Sure.
I don't know what Frog Detective is, but there are multiple games in Dreams that somebody's made called Pig Detective, and I think they're actually quite fun.
Oh. I don't know if
The
they're
Haunted
related,
Island,
but
a frog detective game.
yes. They're very cute, very funny. But anyway, yes, Last of Us Part 2 is my actual number one. I cried when I started playing this game because I couldn't believe that I was actually playing it. And I know that makes me sound like the most, I don't know, fallen of Last of Us fans at this point, given the discourse and what it is. But and this is going to be my meteoric hot take of this whole thing, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I really
Maybe.
think Last of Us Part 2, when you were talking about how it defied expectations like that, it really reminded me of the discourse around The Last Jedi, and also like that basically The Last of Us 2
Absolutely.
did what The Last Jedi wanted to do. I like The Last Jedi, but I think what The Last of Us 2 did a lot of what that, whether you like it or not, I think they were both trying to get the same thing across, where they're trying to subvert expectations, and they're not necessarily trying to appeal to fan base. They're not making safe decisions. And I think The Last of Us 2 did that so consistently and excellently. There was a point where I think at one point where I was like, I don't know if I agree with like how long this game is running, and there were a couple of like later game bosses that I didn't have a lot of fun with. And so at one point it was like a 9 out of 10 for me, but then I reached that ending and I was like, it's a 10 out of 10. And I kept shout, like I must have sounded absolutely bonkers. Like I'm in my fucking room and I'm just shouting like, I can't believe they did it, and it's just absolutely wild that they pulled this off, and that I don't want to say too much. I won't say any spoilers at all, but there is an element of empathy that we've been touching on that this game really wants to get through to you, and it 100% worked on me to the point that I was completely on another character's side by the time that the game wanted me to. And it does it so damn well. Naughty Dog has their problems, and this game is not flawless. But overall, I mean, this was the best gaming experience of 2020, and it's one of my favorite games of all time.
And what's interesting is, if I can just, I think it's funny for audio listeners, like when Dory's talking about the ending there, we're like I love how we're all on the same page. We're like the bobbing head gang. We're all just nodding along. But yeah, like I think it's interesting that by the end you were like rooting for one character, and I think I was rooting for another, but we still both got to that same point, and loved the game just as much. But yeah, like I got to the end of that game, and I remember thinking when I finished that game, thank fuck Mitch is the one reviewing this and not me, because I really don't think I'm in a position to be I need to process my thoughts on this for like a few days at least before I can talk about it. Like that's the only time I've ever finished a video game and thought, I don't want to talk about this.
If I can say, something here.
Hey, Mahvl, isn't this your pick?
Yeah. This is my pick. There, at the ending, there was a moment as soon as the game rolled credits. I played through the first game and the second game with my sister. We played them back to back, both experiences for the first time. And I can only compare it to being in the theater at the ending of Infinity War, where everyone just had this quiet agreement to not shout, not clap, not say really anything, but to just kind of sit there and take it all in. And when this game finished and it rolled credits, my sister and I, we'd been cracking jokes the entire game. We were we were shouting, hooting, and hollering at every single kill, being as bombastic as we could. The second that it rolled credits, we just were silent and we didn't say anything. And we both just stood up after like 2 minutes of watching the credits. We just like waved to each other. We said goodnight and we just parted ways because it was an experience where neither of us had decided what we had felt on it yet. It puts so much in your direction at the very end where you need to take time to think about it. You don't want to just say something right off the bat. I think we took like 20 minutes, and eventually I looked at her and I just said, I think this might be one of the best games ever, but it also might be bad. And she was like, I agree. It's like,
yeah.
Everyone is going to walk out of that game with a different feeling, with a different experience on exactly what they wanted from it and what they got from it. And it's perfect that way. The game has a lot of issues, but having a game where everyone who goes through it will have their own opinion on it in such a strong fashion, like you pointed it out best. At the end, you were rooting for one character and Dory was rooting for another one, and you still both came away like, this is what we wanted, and you both came away satisfied with what you had played. It's something that I think only Naughty Dog could pull off to this degree, and it really deserves all the love it's getting, and not as much of the hate, but some of it.
Yeah, well said. Does anyone else have anything to add on The Last of Us Part 2?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
It's all right, you know.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's fine, you know. I think I will just say though, I think whenever like someone just mentions the ending, I have that, you know, that final little guitar string song at the very end of the game. I have that like ingrained into the back of my brain at this point. Like if someone mentions the ending or if I hear that music, I just immediately have a Vietnam flashback to like me experiencing that ending for the first time and the just emotion I felt from it.
Yeah.
But it's that powerful of a game, honestly. I can't say anything
that's the
more.
thing. Like I'm actually kind of worried that as time goes on and as I replay it more, the emotions, because a lot of it is based on sort of surprise of not knowing where it's going and being surprised when it goes in the ways you don't expect.
Yes.
I am very sort of worried that the more I play it, the more sort of nullified those emotions are going to be, and I'll sort of forget how it made me feel that first time. Hopefully not, but yeah, there's a lot of it is based. I think a lot of it is based on that first playthrough. I think that first playthrough is always going to be the strongest.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just cap off this segment with like just saying where I'm at with the game at the moment. In my current playthrough, it's been this way for about 2 months, and I haven't, you know, had the, I guess you could say, courage to pick it up. I'm right at, I guess you could say, just before that final scene. I don't want to say where, but like just before that final scene with the big emotional impact, and I just haven't wanted to pick it up just because I don't know if I want to go through that sort of ring of emotions again.
Yeah.
But it's a damn good ending. I'll just say
I basically played the game twice, more or less. I pretty much got to, I won't say anything specific, but I pretty much got to that last part of the game. I think everybody knows what I'm saying, but basically, you know, where it's a lot sunnier often. I stopped a little bit short of it because honestly, I was playing on hard mode, not grounded. I don't think grounded had come out yet. And I had played, you know, put another like 10 hours or whatever into it. And I felt really satisfied where I was. You know, I didn't feel like I needed to experience that again. I didn't feel like I needed to experience that part of the game. You know, there are definitely parts of the game where I felt like there's a part of us, I think, that wants the game to end at a certain place and says that the game would be better. I know there are fans out there who definitely believe that wholeheartedly. I think they're wrong. They're absolutely incredibly wrong. And I think this is a case of people not actually knowing what they want, because I think what we think we want is a really, really clear-cut happy ending, and then we have to remember this is a Naughty Dog game, and that's not how it's going to work, especially in the Last of Us universe. I want my frickin' I can't even say it. Spoiler. But anyway, it's a tremendous game and it's a tremendous effort, and I hope they don't make another one for 10 years if they ever do.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
With that said, to round us off, for part 1 of our Game of the Year thingy-majig, whatever you're calling this, Mahvl, your number 1 pick, please.
my number 1 pick for Game of the Year is Half-Life Alyx.
Which you put
Hey.
above The Last of Us Part 2 on a PlayStation podcast.
Yes, I did!
You
It's a
absolute bad lad.
statement.
Tell us why.
I have got balls of steel for that choice. Do you mind if I give a little bit of backstory? And by a little bit, I mean there's going to be a good chunk, but it's important to explain why it had the impact it did on me.
By all
Do it.
means, but
Okay,
no
okay,
spoilers, because I'm going to
Do
play
it,
the
do it, do
game
it.
very soon.
Of course. So back in, I believe, 2014, early 2014, I started playing this little game that pretty much no one has ever heard of, and this is genuine. It's called Galaxy Warfare. It's this little online MMO. You fly around in a gridded space. I'm not going to go into details on that, but I made a couple of friends, and we decided to start working on a project that we called Anti-Trooper 1. And the whole purpose of this project was to assemble, us 3 and a group of other people to make a mod for Half-Life 2. That is a game that up until that point I had never seen. And so making these friends got me to experience Half-Life 2 for the first time. And as I was growing up, ever since 2014, it's been about 6 years, I have been slowly getting more and more into Half-Life as a franchise, and these people have been the people that I've been working with creatively for the last 6 years at this point. I grew up with them, and I grew up with Half-Life, and so our friendship sort of merged into this thing where there is a Half-Life game existing, then our friendship just spontaneously comes back, and it puts us back in that nostalgic state of 2014 and seeing all of this for the first time. So needless to say, I have been following Half-Life Alyx, or as it was then known, Half-Life VR, for about 4 or 5 years at this point, ever since the first strings of code were released. And so it's been a 4-year-long build of me learning more and more and more about this game and still not quite knowing what we were going to get. And the day that it released, I believe it was March 12th. You can check me on that, but I believe it was March 12th. I remember getting off of work and loading the game. It's one of the few games I pre-ordered. Loading the game and just standing there staring at Steam, waiting for it to finally let me boot up.
March 23rd.
Dang it! I was so close. Thank you, James, for making me
There's
a
a 2 in
full
there.
fool. But yeah,
There's a 2 in there.
so I got into the game. I saw the title screen, and I just remember being hit with a wall of, oh my god, this is actually happening. And I don't know if you've seen the intro to Half-Life Alyx, and I'm going to get into very light spoilers here, and some mild spoilers in a minute or two. But you load in, and you are looking over City 17, which is the city that you spend most of your time in Half-Life 2 and its sequels in. And getting to actually look around this world and put my hands on it and walk through it and see it just come to life around me, I started tearing up like a little infant baby, seeing their mother. This is a freaking game, and without anything really having happened, I was just struck with so much love and joy. And the further you go, I mean, it's only like a 10-hour game. You can beat it in 2 playthroughs. I beat it in 2 days because I pretty much binge played it. There is so much that happens that I will never forget. So many experiences that could only happen in VR and things that are really going to push that medium forward forever. It's visually stunning. The gameplay is so nice. It's nothing like incredible. If you're looking for pure gameplay, go to Boneworks. If you're looking for the best VR game, go to Half-Life Alyx. There are moments that could only be achieved in VR, and one that comes to mind is the one that broke my my Oculus Touch controller. If I had it next to me, I would show you. There is a blind zombie, and James, I'm sorry, I am spoiling this for you. There is a blind zombie segment about halfway through the game. And the whole purpose of this is you cannot make a sound, otherwise this zombie will find you and melt you into a little puddle. And my experience with this made me so nervous and anxious that there's a scene where you are standing in an elevator with this blind zombie. And your goal is to just take your pointer finger and press an elevator button that's about an inch away from him. But he is banging his head into the wall, screaming and groaning. Lights are flickering. And my hand was so shaky, like from just pure terror, that as I went to go press that button, I accidentally poked him instead and got eaten by this terrifying freaking monster here. And that was the moment that I finally opened my hand from my touch controller, and I realized I had been holding on to it so tightly without realizing it that I had broken the spring inside of my VR controller, and the grip button no longer came back out. It's just so much pure emotion, things you can only really experience for yourself come through the VR medium, and Half-Life Alyx pushes it forward in a big way. And I won't spoil the ending. I saw you've been playing the Half-Life games again recently, James. I don't know if you finished.
Catch up.
Yeah, have you beaten either of the episodes?
I finished episode 1. I just have episode 2 to go. Then I'm on to Alyx.
Okay.
Do you know what happens? Like, have you been
Don't
spoiled
you
on
dare
any of the
tell
Half-Life?
him.
I'm not going to tell him
dare.
at all. I'm just yes or no answer. Do you know anything about Half-Life before going into the series at this current point?
Anything about what,
Spoiler
just the
wise,
games?
yes or no?
The games in
Or
general.
like the story.
I've played through all the games up until episode 1.
Okay, so you don't know anything. Cool.
Wait,
Yeah.
That's on that.
No, you will understand this in a minute. So, yeah, please play through episode 2 and then completely play through Half-Life Alyx. Do not touch Half-Life Alyx until you play through episode 2. There is some stuff that happens towards the end which made me legitimately cry. It made me bawl my eyes out because I realized what they were doing, and it is so inspiring in a terrible way, I'd say, for a Half-Life fan, because they're making moves and you can see what's happening next, which for many reasons I won't spoil, but you are going to be seeing more Half-Life very soon. And that is what I will say regarding the ending of that game. And I really, really want to know what you think of it when you play it, because it is easily my favorite experience of the year, and I will never forget my time playing this game.
So to summarize, Half-Life Alyx tops out The Last of Us Part 2 on your list because of an elevator.
Yeah! No, because of many things that happened, but the elevator scene is the one that I'll
James, you clearly have not listened to the Game of the Year discussion from MinMax when they're discussing their best moment. But that's mentioned in there. There are some that they get into a big huge thing about The Last of Us 2.
I have listened to it. That's okay.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that caps us out for the first part of this. That's all our individual lists. I think with the Last of Us Part 2 is very high up there for all of us. Unsurprisingly, perhaps. I think we all knew that was coming.
Yep.
I suppose,
apart from that, really, quite a diverse list of lists. Does anybody have any honorable mentions that haven't been brought up already that they want to mention real quick?
I did want to real quick mention a couple honorable mentions. So I've already said Fall Guys, but I also want to point out Spiritfarer, which I played this year. Very fun, very cute, wholesome game. You can hug animals for heck's sake. It's a management game, so I kind of fell off it after 9 or 10 hours, but then my partner loves the game. It's their game of the year. just in case you were curious. And she put in another like 20 hours or so. Loved the game, finished it. But I thought it was very cute and charming. And miniature games just aren't for me. And then Ring Fit, I have been playing lately.
Did that come out this year?
Had a really, what's that?
Did that come out this year?
Ring Fit didn't come out this year, I guess, but I've been playing it this year. But I just wanted to honorable mention it and just say I've been having a blast with it. Yeah.
Okay, Mahvl, you got any honorable mentions?
I've got nothing. I could barely scrunch together a top 10.
Okay, Mitch.
I'm with Marvel. I could
as-
barely scratch together a top 10 list.
As for me, my honorable mentions are Fall Guys, of course, Bloodroots. I wanted to mention Bloodroots, which came out earlier in the year. I have a review written, might be going up as a video at some point. I'm not sure when. I think Bloodroots is a really good sort of. It's weird. It's this indie game where it's one of those like you die in one hit kind of deals, and you're going through these various stages or picking up weapons as you go, and just like you're killing people with fish, you're killing people with guns, you're killing people with stacks of hay on fire, you're killing people with everything, and it's just it has a really strong sort of gameplay loop. I think there's another game that I'd compare it to. That I can't remember what it is, but I know there's another game that I'd compare it to that has a similar sort of gameplay thing. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Also, Inertial Drift, which there is a review on the channel for. This one would have flown under everyone's radar. Basically, just sort of an arcade racing game with an interesting mechanic where you steer with the right analog stick. No, you steer with the left analog stick and you drift with the right analog stick. So you use both analog sticks for turning, really, and there's a lot of dynamics that feeds into the gameplay in such a way that it makes for some very interesting gameplay that works in tandem with the level layout and that sort of thing. So that one's a lot of fun. Demon Souls, Astro's Playroom, Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Okay.
Jesus, dude, how many games do you have?
I play a lot of games, okay? Microsoft Flight Simulator, not a game per se. I mean, it is technically a game. I don't know if I didn't put a score on it because I don't know if I'd call it a game. But it's basically the world's most advanced photo mode. Mm-hmm. It's really quite something. You can go anywhere in the planet. I mean, I don't need to say I don't need to say anything else, so I won't say anything else. You can go anywhere on the planet. Okay. And finally, Ghost Runner. Which is a fun little game. Another one where you sort of die in one hit. Another short experience. I put it in that AA sphere where it's not quite AAA, it's not quite indie. It's a little the story's a little nonsensical and boring, but the gameplay loop is a lot of fun, if a little annoying. Basically, sorry,
no,
Marvel?
You can go ahead.
I was just gonna say, basically, you're running around as a ninja, slicing people up.
I did just come up with one that I wanted to do an honorable mention for. I completely forgot about this game until 5 minutes ago when it randomly popped back into my head. The Nintendo Switch game Good Job. Nintendo shadow dropped that one, and it came out of nowhere. I remember picking this game up after hearing them talk about it on the MinMax show, and they were just like, oh, it's such a fun little game, and that is the best way to describe it. I mean, it's nothing incredible. But it is certainly a great way to spend an evening with friends or family. You can give them a controller, run around, and completely destroy an office building. That's just the core of the game. That's all you need to know about it. Absolutely give that one a look if you're looking for something fun to play with your friends.
Fantastic. So that, unless some games randomly popped into Mitch's head at this point, which it has not, that wraps us up for personal lists. We'll be back in about a week's time for our collective list. We're going to take all the PlayStation games that we've discussed just now, and we're going to whittle them down to a top 10 that we can all sort of agree on. And that'll be coming in a week, as I say. So tune in for that. Thanks for joining us for this part 1 of our Game of the Year deliberations, and we'll see you then.